Gold Dragon Ambassador, what do you think about this little guy? Huaman asked. His comprehension of the sword principle of Gale is good. Yi Ruffing smiled slightly and looked at Jian Wushuang, then continued, Little guy, how old are you? 17, Jian Wushuang replied. Only 17? Yi Ruffing and Huaman both had a surprised expression. Then Yi Ruffing laughed and said, You are excellent considering your high comprehension of the sword principle of Gale. Little guy, you should prepare yourself to go to the Dragon Palace with me in 2 days. Jian Wushuang's eyes lit up because he understood that Yi Ruffing recognized his talent and was going to recommend him. Thank you so much, Gold Dragon Ambassador, Jian Wushuang said immediately. You are welcome. It will also benefit me if you really become a disciple of Dragon Palace. Yi Ruffing gave a wave. Jian Wushuang nodded and then he left. Qingdong City, Celestial Immortal Residence. Brother Swordsman. Swordsman, how did it go? Yin Min and Ling Tianhao had been waiting for him since earlier. The Gold Dragon Ambassador promised to recommend me. But it's not guaranteed that I can join Dragon Palace, Jian Wushuang said. Haha, based on your strength, you should definitely be able to. Come on. Cheers, Ling Tianhao said and smiled. Jian Wushuang grabbed the wine cup and had a toast with Ling Tianhao. Although the time that he had been acquainted with Yin Min and Ling Tianhao was not long, he found that they were a spontaneous and merited group after getting along with them. The status of a Gold Dragon Ambassador is high and he knows a lot regarding Dragon Palace. Also, a Gold Dragon Ambassador has a limited number of recommendations, so each recommendation is important. Since the Gold Dragon Ambassador recommended you, it means that he thinks you have the ability to make it through the test to join Dragon Palace. Yin Min said. Jian Wushuang nodded secretly. Indeed, Yi Ruffing was well informed on the situation inside the Dragon Palace. Since he was willing to recommend him, it meant that he was confident in Jian Wushuang. Haha, based on that, you will definitely be able to join and cultivate in the Dragon Palace. Come on. Cheers. Cheers. Congratulations, Ling Tianhao said instantly. Jian Wushuang and Yin Min also lift their cups. The three of them were drinking with passion. 2 days later, at the Golden Dragon subsidiary palace. Little guy, are you ready? Let's go, Yi Ruffing said. Jian Wushuang nodded and then he left the city with Yi Ruffing. Now they were outside of the city. Grasp my hand, Yi Ruffing said. After grasping Yi Ruffing's hand without hesitance, Jian Wushuang felt a special power gathering beneath Yi Ruffing's feet. Subsequently, the figure of Yi Ruffing was floating and then Jian Wushuang also began floating. Then, they left at an incredible speed. Is this Void Walk? Jian Wushuang was surprised and became even more eager to reach the Yinyang Void Realm. The distance between the Dragon Palace and Qingdong City was equal to the most remote provinces. It would take 1 or 2 months to rush to the Dragon Palace if Jian Wushuang walked there on his own. But now it would only take 1 day to rush to the Dragon Palace under Yi Ruffing's lead. Is this the Dragon Palace? Jian Wushuang was still floating in the air, overlooking the boundless ground in astonishment. Below him, he saw an area between 2 giant mountains, full of magnificent palaces and pavilions that towered above the ground. In the center, a statue of a gold dragon was coiled up, appearing as if it was flying to the 9th heaven. Let's go down. Yi Ruffing dived down along with Jian Wushuang. Upon reaching the ground, many figures appeared in front of them. These people all wore the same golden armors and helmets, holding golden long spears. When they saw Yi Ruffing, they paid their respects instantly and said, Your Excellency, where are the 2 palace masters? Yi Ruffing asked directly. They are both staying at the Dragon Gate. A golden-armored sergeant, a leader among them, said, Oh, the Dragon Gate? Is there an exceptional genius going through the Dragon Gate Pass? He should be fascinating if he drew the attention of the 2 palace masters, replied Yi Ruffing. Yes, he is new, but his talent is unbelievable. It's said that he has made it through the 6th layer, said the golden-armored sergeant. What? The 6th layer? Yi Ruffing was shocked and then waved his hand, saying, Carry on with your duties. I'll go meet the two palace masters on my own. Okay. Those golden-armored sergeants went back to work immediately. However, they could not help glancing at Jian Wushuang as they left. Jian Wushuang's expression was serious. Once those golden-armored sergeants were gone, he could not help asking, "Your Excellency, those sergeants are all experts in the gold core realm?" "Yes, and their strength is at the peak of the gold core realm." Yi Ruffing smiled casually and continued saying, "Those golden-armored sergeants are the emperor-guarding army that is well known in the Tianzong dynasty. They specifically guard the imperial palace and some other important areas. They are the most elite and violent force in the Tianzong dynasty. The battle strength of the army is astonishing. The minimum strength required to become a sergeant in the emperor-guarding army, the peak of the golden core realm." "What?" Jian Wushuang was astonished. The minimum strength required for normal sergeants was the peak of the gold core realm? "Little guy, I have heard from Huaman that you have a great enmity with the Blood Feather Tower, and that it's irreconcilable. Is that right?" Yi Ruffing asked while looking at Jian Wushuang. "Yes," Jian Wushuang said and nodded. "Don't worry about the Blood Feather Tower. As long as you can make it through the Dragon Palace's test and become a disciple of Dragon Palace, you will be protected. The Dragon Palace is located at the campsite of the Emperor Guarding Army. There are many experts. The Blood Feather Tower has no way to kill you in the Dragon Palace, even if they sent all of their experts here," said Yi Ruffing. Jian Wushuang believed him. "Your Excellency, is the Dragon Gate that the sergeant mentioned also the testing area for joining the Dragon Palace?" Jian Wushuang asked. "You are clever. Yes, a carp jumping into the Dragon Gate means that you are successful. Every disciple who joins and cultivates in the Dragon Palace has to make it through the Dragon Gate pass. That is the test you must pass," Yi Ruffing narrated. "The test in the Dragon Gate is special. It doesn't test your cultivation, spiritual power, or your martial arts technique. It tests your comprehension of the essence realm of heaven and earth. The Dragon Gate has total 13 layers. The first layer requires comprehension of the essence realm of heaven and earth. The higher your comprehension, the more layers you go through. Under normal circumstances, the minimum for joining the Dragon Palace is to make it through the third layer. Because your swordsmanship was executed using your comprehension of the sword principle of Gale, I think that you are very likely to make it through the third layer. That is why I recommended you," Yi Ruffing said. "Based on my comprehension of the sword principle of Gale, it is very likely that I can make it through the third layer?" Jian Wushuang's expression became strange. From what the golden-armored sergeant said earlier, a new person like him that just arrived was currently going through the Dragon Gate and had already passed through the 6th layer. "Okay, this is the Dragon Gate." Yi Ruffing led Jian Wushuang to a towering golden pavilion. At a glance, the pavilion appeared to have 13 levels. At the moment, many people were standing in front of the golden pavilion. The two most prominent people were an old man wearing a black robe and a graceful woman dressed in white. Even though Yi Ruffing was an expert, upon seeing these two people he bowed to pay his respects and said, "Greetings, Palace Master Black and Palace Master White." Yi Ruffing. The graceful woman in white looked at him and Jian Wushuang, then said with a smile, "You brought this little guy to go through the Dragon Gate?" "Yes," said Yi Ruffing with a nod. "You will have to wait a minute. Someone else is already going through the Dragon Gate now," said the graceful woman in white. Then she turned her head immediately. Yi Ruffing and Jian Wushuang had no choice but to wait quietly. Jian Wushuang lifted his head and looked at the towering golden pavilion. The lowest 6 levels of this 13-level golden pavilion were shining. Jian Wushuang knew it meant that 6 levels had been passed by the genius that was currently going through the Dragon Gate. Currently, the genius was making his way through the 7th level. Suddenly, the 7th level of the golden pavilion also burst out with a golden light. "He passed the 7th level," Yi Ruffing shouted out in shock. Many others outside of the golden pavilion also shouted out in surprise. "Sir Yi, is it amazing that he passed the 7th level?" Jian Wushuang couldn't help asking. "Amazing. It is really amazing." Yi Ruffing nodded seriously and said, "I have told you that moving through the Dragon Gate is based on your comprehension of the essence realm of heaven and earth. It's likely that you could make it through the 3rd level with your comprehension of the sword principle of Gale. But it's hard to say if you could make it through the 4th level. As for the 7th level, it's a huge bottleneck. Generally speaking, only someone with comprehension equal to an expert in the yin-yang void realm can make it through. In other words, if someone gets through the 7th level, it means that his comprehension of the essence realm of heaven and earth is not less than an expert in the yin-yang void realm. Jian Wushuang was shocked. How strong was an expert in the yin-yang void realm? How high was an expert's comprehension of the essence realm of heaven and earth? Jian Wushuang could not imagine it. However, he knew that the amount of time he spent comprehending the essence realm of heaven and earth was short. Although he reached a certain level of understanding, there were numerous people whose comprehension was higher than his just among experts in the gold core realm. As for the yin-yang void realm, he was too far away from them. If going through the 7th level is amazing, how about the 8th level? Jian Wushuang asked. Suddenly, the 8th level of the golden pavilion immediately burst out with golden light. He passed through the 8th level. The 8th level. Yi Ruffing had a shocked expression. No wonder the 2 palace maters of Dragon Palace came. A marvelous new member has appeared. Even before cultivating in Dragon Palace, he can already pass through the 8th level of the Dragon Gate. There's no doubt that he'll make greater progress after cultivating in Dragon Palace. His achievements will be even more spectacular. He is really a peerless genius. Yi Ruffing was full of praise, but Jian Wushuang only gave a shrug after listening to his explanation. He was just good in the eyes of Yi Ruffing, but the genius going through the Dragon Gate was praised by Yi Ruffing. With this, it's easy to see how amazingly talented he was. Going through the 8th level of Dragon Gate represented that his comprehension of the essence realm of heaven and earth had surpassed many experts of the yin-yang void realm. It also induced a burst of surprise outside of the golden pavilion. However, the 8th was the limit. The 9th level of the golden pavilion did not light up in the end. Jingle! The gate of the golden pavilion opened. Wearing a blood-red robe, with a blood-red saber on his back, a young man slowly appeared before the eyes of the crowd. Everyone looked at the young man for the first time, including Jian Wushuang. He was slender and handsome with a hint of indifference and pride on his face. A glimmer of an unyielding will was hidden in the deep of his eyes, and he emanated an aura of coldness. The man is cold. Jian Wushuang frowned secretly. Haha, little guy. Welcome to Dragon Palace. The black and white palace masters, as well as the nearby experts of the Dragon Palace, all greeted him with a smile. Little guy, what's your name and how old are you? Palace Master White asked with good intentions. Yang Zixuan, 21, he replied in a cold voice. Everyone who heard him was immediately surprised. 21. He is only 21 years old, yet his comprehension of the essence realm of heaven and earth is already so high. He managed to pass through the 8th level of the Dragon Gate. The most dazzling talent in Dragon Palace only made it through the 8th level. Awesome! Our Dragon Palace will become boisterous. Bai Cheng finally has a rival. Many disciples of Dragon Palace that were present were talking about that. A 21-year-old man had gone through the 8th level of the Dragon Gate. Even in Dragon Palace, it was incredible. He was the most exceptional one among all the exceptional geniuses. After all, previously, there had only been one person that made it through the 8th level of the Dragon Gate, and he was known as the number 1 genius in Dragon Palace, Bai Cheng. Yang Zixuan is amazing, Yi Ruffing said, then sighed with emotion. Having sighed for a while, the black and white palace masters looked at Yi Ruffing and Jian Wushuang. Yi Ruffing, you can let this little guy you brought go through the Dragon Gate now, Palace Master White said, completely ignoring Jian Wushuang. The palace masters had a high status, so the geniuses who had gone through the Dragon Gate were only worth a glance to them. Only a peerless genius like Yang Zixuan could excite the 2 palace masters and receive their enthusiastic treatment. Little guy, you should go. Remember, you should try your best to go to the highest level you can reach, said Yi Ruffing. Okay, said Jian Wushuang. Then he nodded and went straight towards the golden pavilion without paying attention to the gazes of the people around him. He quickly entered the golden pavilion. The first level of the Dragon Gate. A red-haired man was sitting cross-legged on the empty ground. When Jian Wushuang walked inside, the man suddenly glared at Jian Wushuang and said, "Little guy, if you beat me, you can go to the next level. Come on." As soon as he finished speaking, the red-haired man began to brandish his large axe, which was surrounded by a blast of invisible airflow. In an instant, the large axe slashed toward his opponent. Jian Wushuang immediately swung his triple-kill sword to block the blow. Then he directly took the chance to strike back, scratching the garment of the red-haired man. Obviously, the red-haired man was defeated. He made it through the first level. On the first floor, the opponent I met was good at axemanship, but he did not comprehend any of the essence realm of heaven and earth. Therefore, it was easy to defeat him. Jian Wushuang thought privately, then he entered the second floor. The opponent he faced on the second floor had comprehended a trace of the essence realm of heaven and earth. It was the Gale essence, but only the initial stage, so Jian Wushuang still defeated him easily. On the third floor, Jian Wushuang faced a much stronger opponent. After all, one must pass through the third level at the least to enter Dragon Palace. Naturally, it was more difficult. Go to hell! An ice-cold sword light flashed before disappearing in an instant. In the end, Jian Wushuang defeated him with the first move of anonymous swordsmanship. On the fourth floor, Jian Wushuang's opponent was a black-clothed elder, who held a purple soft sword in his hand. Chuu. Another ice-cold sword light flashed. Once again, it was the first move of anonymous swordsmanship, Blood Shadow. Formless swordsmanship? The black-clothed elder smiled slightly and said, "What a coincidence. I can use the sword essence of Gale too." The same ice-cold dazzling sword light appeared in the black-clothed elder's hand. They were brandishing two of the same sword shadows with the same sword essence. Not only that, both of them released nearly the same spiritual power because the opponent was from the Dragon Gate. Clang! The two sword edges met. What? Jian Wushuang was astonished and downcast. He could clearly tell that the swordsmanship used by the gray-clothed elder was faster than his, even if it was only by a little. His comprehension of the sword principle of Gale is higher than mine. Jian Wushuang realized immediately. Sword-killing movement. Jian Wushuang followed with the second move of anonymous swordsmanship. Haha! It's useless. In the Dragon Gate, the real test is in your comprehension of essence realm of heaven and earth. Martial arts technique and swordsmanship don't make a big difference here. Besides, I can use sword-killing movement too. The killing intent from the purple soft sword in the black-clothed elder's hand exploded, attacking with a sword light which was equal to the one Jian Wushuang released. Once again, two equal sword lights met, and the black-clothed elder suppressed him again. Little boy, give it up. You are too weak in the sword principle of Gale to pass the fourth level, the black-clothed elder said with a smile. Really? Jian Wushuang's expression became serious. Then he said, "What about this move?" After saying that, a heavy sword essence was released. Jian Wushuang swung his long sword with great momentum. It's Earth Sword Essence. The black-clothed elder's expression changed. It's not easy to comprehend the essence realm of heaven and earth. Comprehending one was difficult, to comprehend two at the same time was much more difficult. Yang Zixuan, who passed through the 8th level just now, was a super genius that comprehended two at the same time. The black-clothed elder didn't expect that the little guy standing in front of him, who was under 20 years old, not only had a high level of comprehension in the sword essence of Gale, but also comprehended Earth Sword Essence at the same time. A sword shadow with great momentum rushed straight towards him, as if it could chop up a mountain. After perceiving the great amount of power contained in the sword shadow, the black-clothed elder's countenance changed a little. He didn't fight back recklessly, quickly choosing to dodge it instead. However, before the elder could use his sword to attack, Jian Wushuang changed his sword essence again. He used the sword essence of Gale along with the first move of anonymous swordsmanship, Blood Shadow. He can shift between the sword essences of Gale and Earth so easily? The black-clothed elder was surprised and smiled bitterly. the sword essences of earth and gale. One was massive and majestic with power and influence, while the other was flexible and visionary. If he could perfectly transition between them, these two sword essences would produce a terrible power which the gray-clothed elder could not oppose. The fourth level of the Dragon Gate passed. As for the fifth level, the opponent Jian Wushuang faced also comprehended the sword essence of earth. Not only that, he was stronger than Jian Wushuang in sword essence of earth comprehension and used it more freely. Jian Wushuang tried his best, fighting with him for quite a while. But finally, he was defeated, causing him to stop at the fifth level. When Jian Wushuang walked out of the Golden Pavilion, all the experts of Dragon Palace that were waiting outside looked at him. Passing through the fourth level is good enough, so he is qualified to enter Dragon Palace. However, there is a large gap in skill between him and Yang Zixuan. An extraordinary genius like Yang Zixuan is rare. It is impossible to come by two in a single day. Everyone in the area was secretly discussing it. Little guy, what's your name and how old are you? Palace Master White walked to him and asked directly. Swordsman, said Jian Wushuang. Still chose to use this pseudonym. 17 years old. 17 years old? Everyone in the area was astonished, including both of the palace masters. Then, Palace Master White smiled and said, "Haha! Good. It seems that we have one more genius. It's rare for a 17-year-old kid to pass through the fourth level of the Dragon Gate. You could be ranked between middle and upper among the many disciples in Dragon Palace." Palace Master Black, who stayed silent, nodded in agreement. Yi Ruffing, you brought a good disciple to Dragon Palace. Palace Master White looked over at Yi Ruffing. I just did my duty, said Yi Ruffing, remaining humble. Yang Zixuan, swordsman, from now on, you are both disciples of Dragon Palace. Congratulations for becoming one of the many monsters in Tianzong Dynasty, said Palace Master White with a laugh. Jian Wushuang and Yang Zixuan stood side by side. After hearing this, Jian Wushuang smiled slightly and Yang Zixuan was indifferent as always. Come with me. I will take you to visit Dragon Palace, said Palace Master White, intending to escort both Jian Wushuang and Yang Zixuan. Suddenly, the surroundings totally calmed down. A white-haired man wearing white slowly walked into the people's sights. His hair is as white as snow. The strongest genius, Bai Cheng, the strongest disciple in Dragon Palace. It's him. He actually appeared. As he approached, all the disciples of Dragon Palace watched him with grim looks on their faces. Is he Bai Cheng? Jian Wushuang slightly squinted his eyes while hearing Bai Cheng's name mentioned in their discussion. The strongest person in Dragon Palace? Yang Zixuan raised his head and saw the white figure, with cold and prideful eyes, walking slowly in their direction. The white-haired man in white stopped. His black eyes, full of arrogance, swept over them as the sides of his mouth stretched upwards to form a meaningful smile. I heard that a newcomer passed through the 8th level of the Dragon Gate today, so I wanted to see for myself. Palace Master White. May I know which one of these two passed the 8th level? Though he seemed kind and gentle, there was a trace of insidious coldness inside his eyes when looking at Jian Wushuang and Yang Zixuan. Palace Master White instantly introduced them one by one, starting with Jian Wushuang. This is swordsman 17 years old. He passed through the 4th level. Oh! Bai Cheng glanced at Jian Wushuang with a faint smile and said, the 4th level. He would be ranked at the bottom among the many disciples of Dragon Palace. But he's young. If there are no accidents, it's possible for him to pass the 7th level before 20. He can reach the same level as Golden Dragon Ambassador Yi, and would barely be an expert in the Tianzong Dynasty. Hearing what he said, Yi Ruffing smiled faintly and ignored it. He did not dare to show any disdain. However, Jian Wushuang frowned and felt unpleasant. I might reach the level of Yi Ruffing? I might barely become an expert? Even I can't imagine what I might achieve in the future. What makes Bai Cheng think he can judge me with one glance in such a condescending manner, acting as if what he says will definitely come true in the future? How arrogant and conceited can he be? Even though he was unhappy, he didn't openly offend Bai Cheng. This is Yang Zixuan. He is the one who passed the 8th level and he is currently 21 years old, replied Palace Master White. Bai Cheng turned to face Yang Zixuan and fixed his eyes on him before saying, to pass through the 8th level of the Dragon Gate at 21 years old, you're promising. In Dragon Palace, I'm afraid that there is no one but me who could suppress you. You mean you are stronger than me right now? Yang Zixuan's expression fell. Bai Cheng didn't answer him, he just smiled confidently. Palace Master White, no one is in the Dragon Gate, right? Bai Cheng asked. Yes. Palace Master White nodded. Okay. I have not been tested in a long time. Today, let me give it a try. After saying that, he immediately entered the Dragon Gate. Both Jian Wushuang and Yang Zixuan, who were supposed to leave, stopped and looked carefully at the golden pavilion to see what would happen. After entering the Dragon Gate, Bai Cheng quickly passed through the first level, causing it to light up. Then he continued moving forward smoothly. He passed 8 levels in succession. Bai Cheng entered the 9th level and stayed in it for a long time before the 9th level finally lit up, releasing a golden light. The 9th level of Dragon Gate passed. He actually passed the 9th level? Yi Ruffing was shocked and couldn't say anything. It should be known that even if it was him, he would not be able to pass it, even after trying his best. However, Bai Cheng succeeded. He really was the top genius in Dragon Palace. This is the strongest person in Dragon Palace. So awesome. Though Yang Zixuan is great, he is new and young. He cannot compete with Bai Cheng yet. We thought Yang Zixuan would be strong enough to be Bai Cheng's opponent. But the truth is that he is far away from him for now. A large number of disciples of Dragon Palace in front of the Dragon Gate were discussing the recent events secretly. Not long after that, Bai Cheng walked out of the golden pavilion. Under the watchful eyes and shocked expressions, Bai Cheng walked over to Yang Zixuan again and smiled slightly before saying, "You'll need to work harder, freshman." After saying that, Bai Cheng left without looking back. Since Jian Wushuang only passed the 4th level, Bai Cheng did not even give him a second glance. He is really arrogant. Jian Wushuang licked his lips, the battle intent vaguely rising in his eyes. Yang Zixuan, what do you think? Jian Wushuang suddenly asked. About what? Yang Zixuan looked at him indifferently. I don't like him. Don't you want to defeat him? Jian Wushuang asked. Crush him under my feet? He won't be qualified to be my opponent within 1 year, replied Yang Zixuan. Hearing that, the corners of Jian Wushuang's mouth quirked up. All of you are so arrogant and conceited. Okay, you are peerless geniuses, so it's normal to be proud of yourselves. Besides, you really are strong. Jian Wushuang thought. Someone who just joined, passed the 8th level of the Dragon Gate, and the other one passed the 9th level. However, he could only pass the 4th level after trying his best. So there was a huge gap between him and those two peerless geniuses. The wider the gap was, the more it inspired him. There was a gap now, so what? It should be known that he had only started comprehending the essence realm of heaven and earth 4 months ago. It's unbelievable to comprehend both of the sword essences of Gale and Earth to such a high level within 4 months. No matter whether it was Bai Cheng or Yang Zixuan, they were both older than him and they had spent much more time comprehending the essence realm of heaven and earth as well. Bai Cheng asserted that I could only be a golden dragon messenger like Yi Ruffeng in the future. Let's see. Jian Wushuang snorted. All right, go back to your places. Yang Zixuan, swordsman, you both follow me, Palace Master White said. Jian Wushuang and Yang Zixuan followed Palace Master White. Yi Ruffeng and the Golden Dragon Messenger who brought Yang Zixuan here followed Palace Master Black to receive their rewards. These Golden Dragon Messengers had the right to recommend disciples. Every recommendation that passed the test and became a disciple of Dragon Palace would earn the Golden Dragon Messenger a reward based on the strength of the disciple. In the Dragon Palace, both Jian Wushuang and Yang Zixuan were curiously examining their surroundings, while Palace Master White was telling them the basic information and rules of Dragon Palace. Dragon Palace is a cultivation sanctuary. You both became disciples of Dragon Palace means that you are talented. In Dragon Palace, there are 238 disciples, not counting both of you. Among the 238 disciples, Only one had passed the 8th level of the Dragon Gate, and that was Bai Cheng. But now he has passed the 9th level. 16 disciples passed the 7th level. 67 passed the 6th level. 141 disciples passed the 5th level. The 13 disciples left past the 4th level. After saying this, Palace Master White could not help glancing at Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang also could not help touching his nose with an embraced expression. There are 238 disciples in total, and only 13 of them were at the 4th level. Most disciples were all at the 5th level or higher. It seems that Bai Cheng was right. I am at the lowest level in Dragon Palace right now. However, Jian Wushuang didn't worry about being at the bottom. It didn't mean that he would be at the bottom forever. So many geniuses are in Dragon Palace. However, the more geniuses the better for me. Jian Wushuang's eyes were sparkling with excitement. Dragon Palace is known as a holy place for cultivation, and it's worthy of the name. Palace Master White continued. The 4 temples of earth, fire, water, and wind, the secret land of heaven and earth, and the secret pavilion are the 3 treasures of Dragon Palace. They are of great help to the disciples of Dragon Palace. As for the benefits of the 3 treasures, you will gradually understand them in the future. In addition, there are also 2 places for practicing: the Dragon Gate and Heavenly Palace. The Dragon Gate, which you have just tried, is the best place to test the progress of the Dragon Palace disciples. It can accurately gauge the disciples' perception to the essence realm of heaven and earth. As for the Heavenly Palace, that is used to test overall strength. Usually, no one will go to the Heavenly Palace. Only disciples who have enough strength to leave Dragon Palace will go to the Heavenly Palace. Palace Master White simply explained a few basic conditions of Dragon Palace again. Not long after that, she arrived at the manor with Jian Wushuang and Yang Zixuan. Each disciple of Dragon Palace will have a single house. Your rooms are also in this manor, Palace Master White informed them. Jian Wushuang and Yang Zixuan quickly noticed that the manor contained 4 independent houses, even though the area was not big. Fatty Wang. Palace Master White's voice echoed throughout the area. "Oh, I'm coming," a rough voice echoed back. After which, a big fat man in a blouse hurried out of one room and a timid figure hurried out of another room. Jian Wushuang looked at the 2 incoming people. That big fat man was not tall, but he was extremely large, weighing nearly 300 jeans. That big face, larger than an ordinary person, was covered with a smile. But the smile seemed very quirky no matter what angle you looked from. As for the other person, she was a tall and thin girl with long blue hair. A young girl who appeared to be only 14 or 15 years old. She followed the big fat man, looking down in a very shy manner. It seemed like she was afraid to make eye contact with Jian Wushuang and Yang Zixuan. Palace Master White glanced at the big fat man and told him, "From now on, they will live in the manor with you. You can take them and familiarize them with environment of Dragon Palace." "No problem." The big fat man nodded and promised. "These are your disciple tokens, which contain your points. In Dragon Palace, points are very important. Many of the resources in Dragon Palace can only be redeemed using points," said Palace Master White. Jian Wushuang and Yang Zixuan took the tokens and examined the numbers. 2,000 points? Jian Wushuang felt excited. Then he looked at Yang Zixuan's token. He had a full 6,000 points. "I only have 2,000 points, but he has 6,000 points, 3 times mine. Is it possible that the points depend on how many levels you pass through in the Dragon Gate?" Jian Wushuang secretly pondered. In his opinion, that was the only possibility given the situation. "All right, little guys. Make sure to work hard. Many years from now, I hope to see another 2 excellent disciples emerge from my Dragon Palace," said Palace Master White, who smiled and then immediately departed. After Palace Master White walked away, the big fat man immediately looked over and introduced himself. "My name is Wang Yuan, and the girl next to me is Su Ro." "Swordsman," Jian Wushuang said. Yang Zixuan also introduced himself. "Swordsman Yang Zixuan, your arrival made the manor considerably full. Come. For the first meeting, The four of us need to have a quick drink, replied Wang Yuan with a smile. Then, he turned up his hand and a wine pot appeared. After the stopper was opened, the aroma of the wine soon spread it out. Smelling the aroma, Jian Wushuang smiled. While on the other side, Yang Zixuan's indifferent expression also slightly relaxed a bit, after which the four of them drank in front of the stone table in this manner. After drinking a few glasses of wine in succession, the atmosphere was no longer so boring. At this time, Wang Yuan said, "Swordsman Yang Zixuan, we will not live in the manor together for more than several years. It's too polite to call each other by name. What if we call each other as brothers and sisters according to age? I'm the oldest, so I'm the elder brother. Yang Zixuan, your age is only a little younger than mine, so you are the second brother. Swordsman, you the third brother. As for Su Rou, she's our fourth sister." "All right." Wang Yuan smiled and looked around. "Okay." Jian Wushuang nodded his head. After all, they will live in the same manner in the future. The relationship among them should be better. And after drinking, the three of them all left a good impression on him. Wang Yuan, he was a generous and careless person without any scheming. This kind of person is the most worthwhile to make friends with, except his talkativeness. Yang Zixuan, as indifferent as he is, did not put on airs. It said that he is the one who broke into the 8th level of the Dragon Palace when he arrived. With such talent, he was still willing to sit down with them to have a few drinks. His eyes did not have the slightest bit of arrogance. For the point, making friends with him was very worthwhile. As for the last one, the little girl Su Rou, she's so timid and shy that she didn't dare to say one word while they were drinking. Jian Wushuang felt a little strange in the beginning, but later he heard from Fatty Wang that when Su Rou was a little girl, she had been sold to a mansion as a servant girl. To be a servant girl since childhood, it's normal for her to be so timid. However, this timid little girl had a great reputation in Dragon Palace. As mentioned before, among the disciples of Dragon Palace, only Bai Cheng had passed through the 8th floor. There were 16 disciples that had passed through the 7th level, and Su Rou was one of them. And most importantly, this year, Su Rou was only 14 years old. The 14-year-old Su Rou broke through the 7th level of the Dragon Gate. What does that mean? So, after Jian Wushuang and Yang Zixuan learned of her achievement, they were both astonished. Similarly, Su Rou is also worth making friends with. Therefore, after hearing the proposal of Wang Yuan, Jian Wushuang immediately agreed. Yang Zixuan, as always, was indifferent, giving neither refusal nor opposition. As for the timid girl Su Rou, she nodded her head shyly. "Ha, since there is no objection, let us make this decision final. From now on, the four of us are siblings. We shall share happiness and hardship together," said Wang Yuan. Then he smiled and lifted the cup for a toast. Without any hesitation, Jian Wushuang and Su Rou immediately raised their glasses. As for Yang Zixuan, he pondered for a while, then raised the glass too. Quang. With the toasting finished, the famous Tianzong dynasty and the four matchless heroes of the heaven and the earth were born. After drinks, Wang Yuan was hanging out with Jian Wushuang and Yang Zixuan. "You two have just arrived at Dragon Palace. Let me show you around. I'll take you to the treasure troves of Dragon Palace," Wang Yuan said. "All right." Jian Wushuang and Yang Zixuan nodded. Dragon Palace covered a large area and was famous for 3 treasure troves: 4 temples of earth, fire, water, and wind, secret land of heaven and earth, and secret pavilion. The first place Wang Yuan brought them to was 4 temples of earth, fire, water, and wind. "Look, this is 4 temples of earth, fire, water, and wind." Wang Yuan pointed to the 4 pavilions which covered a wide area. Each pavilion had a gilded character engraved on the lintel, earth, fire, water, and wind respectively. The 4 temples of earth, fire, water, and wind are where the disciples of Dragon Palace visit the most. Earth, fire, water, and wind represent the 4 kinds of essence realm of heaven and earth, which are Earth Essence Realm, Raging Fire Realm, Water Drop Essence Realm, and Gale Essence Realm. There are 6 temple masters in each temple. They are the top experts in the world and have reached the highest level of comprehending essence realm of heaven and earth. The reason why disciples of Dragon Palace often visit 4 temples is that the temple masters usually give lessons in the temples, displaying some martial arts techniques and giving disciples some advice. If you have any problem in comprehending essence realm of heaven and earth, you can consult these temple masters. After receiving their guidance, you might be enlightened. On hearing this, Jian Wushuang's and Yang Zishuan's eyes lit up. If I have any problem in comprehending essence realm, I can consult these temple masters? What's more, there are 6 temple masters dealing with each essence realm. The 6 temple masters in each temple should be good at different aspects. It would be superior to following a top expert. Although a top expert would try his best to teach someone, he was alone and studied only one aspect. If he encountered unfamiliar fields, he would not know how to instruct them. In Dragon Palace, 4 temples covered 4 kinds of essence realms of heaven and earth. Each temple had 6 powerful temple masters, who studied various fields. Therefore, the disciples did not worry that they would encounter an unsolvable problem. Now we come to the secret land of heaven and earth. Wang Yuan led the way. Then they stood in front of a majestic palace. 2 golden-armored sergeants kept guard at the palace entrance. Wang Yuan said, "Secret land of heaven and earth is special and helpful at comprehending the essence realm of heaven and earth. If you want to enter secret land of heaven and earth, you need to pay 1,000 points to access the palace, and you can only stay inside for 2 hours each time. Though it is only 2 hours, I'm sure you'll benefit greatly from each visit. Moreover, you're newcomers in Dragon Palace, so each of you can enter the palace for free 3 times. Oh, Jian Wushuang said, raising his eyebrows. He had just been surprised at the 4 temples of earth, fire, water, and wind. The secret land of heaven and earth was as famous as the 4 temples. Jian Wushuang was somewhat curious about it, as the palace, with the harsh requirements to access it, must be extraordinary. How about it? Do you want to have a try? Wang Yuan smiled mysteriously. Sure. Jian Wushuang gave a little smile and then glanced at Yang Zishuan. Second elder brother, you go first. Yang Zishuan nodded and directly walked toward the palace. The 2 golden-armored sergeants stepped forwards, but immediately allowed Yang Zishuan to enter secret land of heaven and earth. 2 hours later, Yang Zishuan came out of it with a blank look. Second elder brother? Jian Wushuang frowned. Don't disturb him. He's in the state of comprehension. Wang Yuan was not surprised at all and spoke to Jian Wushuang. Third younger brother, it's your turn. Jian Wushuang nodded slightly, and then he stepped towards the secret land of heaven and earth. The 2 golden-armored sergeants walked forward again, and let Jian Wushuang enter after realizing that he was a newcomer. What on earth is stored in the secret land of heaven and earth? Jian Wushuang stepped into the secret land of heaven and earth with a flicker of curiosity. As soon as he entered, Jian Wushuang immediately felt himself surrounded by darkness. There was only a glimmer of light ahead in the endless darkness. Jian Wushuang could not help but look at the light. He was totally absorbed in it. The glimmer of light suddenly changed into a sword, which contained sword essence of gale, earth sword essence of raging fire, and sword essence of the water drop. He knew the 4 kinds of sword essence were unfathomable, although he had not comprehended the last 2. Jian Wushuang drew out triple kill sword behind him, the sword light starting to move. One after another, the ethereal sword light moved flexibly. Jian Wushuang then started to perform the anonymous swordsmanship. He easily showed the first move of anonymous swordsmanship, Blood Shadow. He did not encounter any problem either in performing the second move of anonymous swordsmanship, sword-killing movement. The third move of anonymous swordsmanship, named Expeditious Maneuver, was a terrifying killing move, emphasizing absolute speed. Jian Wushuang had not comprehended this move. He thought it was because his speed at unleashing the sword was not fast enough. In fact, it was related to his inferior comprehension of sword essence of gale. However, Jian Wushuang could not help wielding his long sword and slowly performed this move in this special situation. Who? The sword light flashed and then disappeared with the wind. He naturally performed the third move of anonymous swordsmanship, expeditious maneuver. Nevertheless, it was not over. As Jian Wushuang continued to wield long sword, the sword light became grander and more massive. Every beam of the sword light contained sword essence of earth. One strike after another, suddenly, the glimmer of light disappeared. Jian Wushuang was slightly surprised and blankly stared into space. 2 hours. I've run out of time? Jian Wushuang looked into the darkness, sighing. Then he turned to leave. Jian Wushuang walked out of secret land of heaven and earth and saw his 3 sworn brothers waiting outside. But he ignored them and directly sat on the ground, with eyes closed. Wang Yuan, Yang Zixuan, and Su Rou were not angry at Jian Wushuang. They knew Jian Wushuang's state and did not want to disturb him. After a while, Jian Wushuang finally breathed a sigh of relief and immediately stood up. How about it? Wang Yuan asked with a smile. Good, very good. Jian Wushuang nodded heavily. The benefits from practicing in secret land of heaven and earth for 2 hours can be comparable to that from earnest cultivation in a month. What Jian Wushuang said was the truth. He had merely spent 2 hours inside the secret land of heaven and earth but made great progress in his understanding of the sword essence. My sword essence of earth and gale have both made huge progress in the third form of formless swordsmanship. Jian Wushuang was pleasantly surprised that those 2 hours were equivalent to his 1 month's worth of hard work. Or more. Same here. I made great progress too, Yang Zixuan said seriously. Haha. This is one of the 3 treasures of the Dragon Palace. The cost of entering it so high, naturally there's a high return too. You can enter the place 3 times. Since you've entered once, you must treasure your 2 remaining chances. Wang Yuan said, smiling. Come with me. I'll show you the last treasure of the Dragon Palace. They followed Wang Yuan to the entrance of a heavily guarded tall attic that exuded a faintly ancient scent. This attic is the most important of the 3 treasures of Dragon Palace. The secret pavilion. There are countless treasures in the secret pavilion, but you can only take them in exchange for points. Go in and have a look, Tianbao said. Jian Wushuang and Yang Zixuan immediately entered the secret pavilion. Inside the large and spacious secret pavilion, the treasures were divided into many categories. There were cultivation methods, martial arts techniques, elixir pills, and exotic classes. With a heavenly creation skill that defied the natural order, Jian Wushuang had no need for cultivation methods. Neither did he need elixirs and exotic classes for now, so he made a beeline for the martial arts techniques section. The martial arts techniques section was divided into swordsmanship, knife methods, spear methods, and so on. Jian Wushuang left Yang Zixuan's side and headed straight for the swordsmanship section. The section stored nearly thousands of rare books on swordsmanship. Fortunately for Jian Wushuang, there was a list that he could refer to. Otherwise, he might need to flip through each book to find the one on his swordsmanship. The list detailed a number of swordsmanship, a basic introduction for each swordsmanship, as well as the points needed for exchange. But just from a quick glance, Jian Wushuang realized the lowest ranked swordsmanship on this list was already top-notch ones. There was also no shortage of sword skills. Sword skills were beyond the scope of so-called swordsmanship. Generally, one needed to use sword skills with a display of sword essence understanding at the same time. Formless swordsmanship. The first item he looked for was the formless swordsmanship. He found out from Yi Ruffing that the formless swordsmanship was none other than the anonymous swordsmanship. The formless swordsmanship had 9 sword movements, and what he had been cultivating was merely the simplest first 3 of the swordsmanship. Found it! Jian Wushuang's eyes brightened when he found the formless swordsmanship on the list. Formless swordsmanship, the sword skill acknowledged by the Tianzong dynasty as world's number 1. It was suitable for warriors who understood the sword essence of Gale. There were 9 movements, and each was stronger than the one before it. Exchange for the first 3 movements with 200 points. Exchange for the middle 3 movements with 2,000 points. The last 3 movements are unavailable. So it's true they only have the middle 3 movements, not the last 3. Jian Wushuang shook his head. He had heard this from Yi Ruffing on their way here. Though there were 9 sword strokes of the formless swordsmanship, the most powerful latter 3 were long lost to history. The Dragon Palace might be the cultivation sanctuary of the Tianzong dynasty, but not even they could recover sword movements in a swordsmanship that had been lost. I'll need to spend 2,000 points alone just for the middle 3 movements. Jian Wushuang frowned secretly, for his current score was precisely that number. There's no hurry. Let's look at other sword skills. Jian Wushuang was not anxious to make his decision yet. He started reading the category of swordsmanship for Sword Essence of Earth Understanding. His comprehension of Sword Essence of Earth was, in fact, far higher than Sword Essence of Gale. It was a pity that he did not have any suitable sword skill to display it all this while. Even in the mansion of Sword Marquis, the first-class swordsmanship he learned leaned toward the Earth Essence. But that was not even a first-class swordsmanship, let alone a super first-class swordsmanship. It was too weak that he could not even show the might of his Sword Essence of Earth to its fullest. Therefore, his immediate priority was finding a suitable sword skill in the Sword Essence of Earth. There were many sword skills on the list that was suitable for his goals. He finally selected 3 after carefully pondering over each one. They were Mark of Earth, Immemorial Sword Skill, and Formless Sword Wave. Mark of Earth required 2,500 points, while Immemorial Sword Skill required 3,000 points. Formless Sword Wave was divided into 2 sections, with each being 2,500 points. Though each of these sword tactics has its own advantages, I think the Formless Sword Ripple seems superior. It also suits me better, but the exchange rate is higher. Jian Wushuang frowned. The 2 sections would cost him 5,000 points. At the moment, he only had 2,000 points. Whatever. Since I don't have enough points for the other 2 sword skills now, I'll just not exchange for now. I'll just wait and find a way to get more points. It wouldn't be too late by then. He then left the swordsmanship section and began taking a stroll through the elixir pills and exotic classes section. There were all kinds of odd treasures and elixirs here, many of which were hard to find in the outside world. In the secret pavilion, one only needed points to get them. Before long, Jian Wushuang left the secret pavilion with Yang Zishuan. But before he left, Yang Zishuan spent 4,000 points to exchange for a martial arts technique. Jian Wushuang could only shrug his shoulders helplessly. There was nothing he could about it. Yang Zishuan had more points than him after all. When he came out of the sword pavilion, Wang Yuan came up to him. "What do you think about the treasures in the secret pavilion?" "There are many of them," Jian Wushuang said. "I've once visited the storehouse of a great power, but it's nothing compared to this place," Yang Zishuan added. "Ha! Of course. This is the secret pavilion of the Dragon Palace. How can those so-called sects of the Tianzong dynasty compare to? As the disciples of this place, we can redeem the treasures if we have enough points." Wang Yuan smiled. "Boss Wang Yuan, how can we get these points?" Jian Wushuang asked. "There are many ways. I'll tell you one by one," Wang Yuan replied, immediately describing each method. First method. Go through the Dragon Gate Pass. There are 13 stories in the Dragon Gate. Starting at the 3rd level, you can get 1,000 points for passing through each level. After the 9th floor, you get 2,000 points each. I heard you mention that one of you passed the 8th floor and the other the 4th. Old 2, you earned 5,000 points. Old 3, you earned 1,000 points. But every newcomer also get 1,000 points for free, so you have 6,000 and 2,000 points respectively. The second way is to complete a task. Dragon Palace provides various tasks for experience. Some of them are difficult, some are relatively simple. You will obtain points according to the complexity of the task. The third way is to battle for points. On hearing this, both Jian Wushuang and Yang Zishuan were puzzled. They could easily understand the first 2 ways, but could not figure out what the battle for points was. The battle for points is actually dueling. Wang Yuan spoke with a smile. There are more than 200 disciples of Dragon Palace with varying strength. As exceptional geniuses, they can be somewhat arrogant. As a result, they often fight with each other in Dragon Palace. Since there are fights, there are duels and bets. As for the bets, it's up to the 2 duelers. Got it. Jian Wushuang and Yang Zishuan immediately understood. Speaking of the battles for points, Third younger brother, you should be careful. Wang Yuan suddenly spoke. Why? Jian Wushuang looked at him in surprise. Wang Yuan said, I just mentioned there are 3 ways to get points. First, going through the Dragon Gate. Many disciples will wait a long time to challenge, and they may not be successful. What's more, they can only gain a few points there. Second, complete tasks for experience. But only difficult tasks offer a lot of points. Disciples of Dragon Palace will face death trials while performing these tasks, so it's very dangerous. Only the third way, battle for points, is simple. You only need to challenge someone weaker than you and settle the bets. Disciples who have stayed in Dragon Palace for a period of time know the other disciples very well, so they won't easily accept challenges. However, you and second younger brother are different because you're newcomers. Jian Wushuang understood. You mean the other disciples of Dragon Palace will want to challenge me? Jian Wushuang asked. Right? Wang Yuan nodded. They are inclined to bully those weaker than them. You have just entered Dragon Palace, so they will treat you as a weakling. They will try their best to challenge you to a duel before you have time to use treasures of Dragon Palace to improve your strength. Of course, second younger brother is also a newcomer, but he made it through the 8th level of the Dragon Gate. He's so powerful that no one will dare to challenge him. Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows. We'll reach the martial arts practice field soon, where many disciples of Dragon Palace gather. Battle for points is usually held there. Third younger brother, you must remember my words. If someone challenges you, you can refuse directly or just ignore them. They cannot do anything to you. Wang Yuan reminded Jian Wushuang. Refuse? Why should I refuse? Jian Wushuang said with a smile. Don't be rash, third younger brother. It is not easy for you to earn points. Do not lose them by acting on impulse. Wang Yuan continued to persuade him. Don't worry. I know what to do, Jian Wushuang said with a smile. The 4 of them had finally arrived at the huge martial arts practice field. The martial arts practice field covered an extremely large area. There were quite a few disciples of Dragon Palace around the center of it. At the moment, all of them looked at the 4 people who just stepped inside. Ha! Newcomers! I hear there are 2 new disciples. Those 2 must be the newcomers. The man with a cold expression is called Yang Zishuan. It's inconceivable that he has already gone through the 8th level of the Dragon Gate. He must be a monster on the same level as Bai Cheng. Yang Zishuan, an exceptional genius, were not comparable to him. The other person was called Swordsman. I hear he only made it through the 4th level. The 4th level means that his strength is at the bottom of Dragon Palace. Going through the 4th level is worth 1,000 points. And since he's a newcomer, he also received 1,000 points for free. In other words, he has 2,000 points now. Yang Zishuan should have attracted more attention because of his brilliant results. Nevertheless, none of the disciples of Dragon Palace looked at him. All eyes were fixed on Jian Wushuang. Their eyes were full of expectation. It looks like I'm popular. Jian Wushuang noticed that their eyes sparkled with eagerness. The corner of his mouth lifted up. Ha ha! You are swordsman, right? A laughter could be heard along with the question. Then a red-haired young man with a saber on his back appeared in front of Jian Wushuang. The aura of spiritual power in the exceptional spiritual sea realm spread out. He said with an expectant look, I'm Zhang Tao. I hear you have gone through the 4th level of the Dragon Gate. So have I. Do you have the guts to have a fair fight with me? Looking at Zhang Tao, Jian Wushuang was delighted in his heart. The other disciples of Dragon Palace were furious. Damn it! He got there first. Zhang Tao is really fast. I hope the newcomer does not accept his challenge. Zhang Tao. Wang Yuan frowned and shouted in a low voice. It's been a year since you went through the 4th level. Now your strength has improved greatly to the point that you can challenge the 5th level. Aren't you embarrassed to talk about having a fair fight with my brother? Third younger brother, leave him alone, said Wang Yuan, winking at Jian Wushuang. What? Are you afraid of fighting with me? If you became a disciple of Dragon Palace, you must be a genius. Don't you have the guts? Zhang Tao spoke directly, then laughed out. Zhang Tao, right? Jian Wushuang raised his head and stared at Zhang Tao with a faint smile. You don't need to provoke me. I accept your challenge. Tell me how many points you want to bet. Cool. Zhang Tao was glad that Jian Wushuang accepted his challenge. I know you should have 2,000 points. I will not bet for all of them, just 1,500 points. That will leave you with 500 points to choose a manual from the General Hall in Secret Pavilion. What do you think? 1,500 points? Zhang Tao, you have a huge appetite. Wang Yuan spoke angrily. It's true. He has a total of 2,000 points. Only you want 1,500 points. Isn't that too much? A disciple of Dragon Palace spoke up from the side. He also coveted Jian Wushuang's 2,000 points. 1,500 points. It's too much indeed. Well, I can bet 1,000 points, Jian Wushuang said. Okay, 1,000 points. Zhang Tao agreed without hesitation. Secretly delighted. Zhang Tao thought that Jian Wushuang was not his match. Jian Wushuang had just become a disciple of Dragon Palace and had only made it through the 4th level of the Dragon Gate. Zhang Tao went through the 4th level a year ago. Since then, his strength had improved greatly with the help of the resources from Dragon Palace. Therefore, he thought he would win this fight no matter what would happen. He was over the moon when thinking about the 1,000 points. It was not a small amount for him, as it was hard to gain points in Dragon Palace. Haha, watch out. Zhang Tao spoke. He directly rushed forward. With a single stride, he appeared before Jian Wushuang and drew the saber on his back. Swish! With one chop, the air was immediately cut. So fast. Jian Wushuang was stunned, and he thought to himself, they are undoubtedly Dragon Palace disciples. Jian Wushuang was very calm. The movement was swift, but his sword was faster. Swish! A dazzling glare of sword light fleeted. It was still the first blood shadow move of formless swordsmanship. A clashing sound could be heard when the two swords met. There was only a slight gap between these two powers. You will be defeated, Zhang Tao said in a low voice. Ridiculous, Jian Wushuang replied with a laugh. These two people began to display their power to its furthest extent. One used the knife and the other the sword. Their splendid speed reached its peak. Clang, 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 clang. Numerous clashing sounds could be heard. The blade lights and sword shadows were extremely rapid. Both Jian Wushuang and Zhang Tao sensed sword principle of Gale, and it was very powerful. Zhang Tao had achieved the 4th level a year ago. Although it was not certain that he would achieve the 5th level, he had been able to fight with the level keepers in the 5th level for a long time. Jian Wushuang did not have a deep comprehension of Gale sword principle, and he was not as powerful as Zhang Tao. But he had obtained a better understanding of sword principle of Gale during the 2-hour cultivation in the secret land of heaven and earth. Thus he was no weaker than Zhang Tao now. The sword light moved and disappeared with the wind. The third move of formless swordsmanship, expeditious maneuver. It's formless swordsmanship, and it's the third move. Is this expeditious swordsmanship? Unbelievable. The surrounding Dragon Palace disciples were amazed. These disciples were familiar with the first sword skill of Tianzong dynasty, and several of them had cultivated the formless swordsmanship. All of them understood the high requirement of practicing this move. Formless swordsmanship? So what? Zhang Tao roared. The saber in his hand split straight down with a bloody light flickering. It burst out in the blink of an eye. The scarlet light of the saber hit the sword light. The sword essence changed suddenly as Jian Wushuang twisted his wrist. It started as the sword essence of Gale, and suddenly became the heavy sword essence of Earth. What? Zhang Tao looked pale. Sword essence of Earth. The Dragon Palace disciples were shocked. It was very difficult to comprehend the essence realm of heaven and earth, and someone comprehending two types at the same time, not to mention both at a high level, was rarely seen. Very few disciples in Dragon Palace could comprehend two types of the realm at the same time. The swordsmanship Jian Wushuang exhibited was obviously the sword essence of Earth. Sword essence of Gale converted perfectly to sword essence of Earth. Sword edge swept Zhang Tao's sleeves and rolled up his robe. Zhang was defeated in this battle. Lose. Has Zhang Tao lost? The entire martial arts practice field went quiet. The Dragon Palace disciples were shocked. Some held contempt for Zhang Tao. Wang Yuan was amazed too. No one had expected this. A newcomer like Jian Wushuang could beat Zhang Tao. Only Jian Wushuang himself thought this was very normal. Relying on the perfectly converted sword essence of Gale and sword essence of Earth, I have fought for a long time at the 5th level. When I went through the Dragon Gate Pass, I improved my cultivation of these 2 sword essences after just 1 hour of learning Secret Land of Heaven and Earth. Now I'm confident I'll pass the 5th level. Zhang Tao, on the other hand, still has a way to go before reaching the 5th level. It is natural that I should beat him. I even didn't do my best. Jian Wushuang laughed at heart. True, he had not done his best. If he had, it would not have taken so long to beat Zhang Tao. Of course, he had his reasons for not doing his best from the beginning. Zhang Tao had a gloomy look on his face. He was in agony. He had lost indeed, and with so many people watching. He could not change it. He transferred 1,000 points to Jian Wushuang immediately. When he saw that his pledge number had reached 3,000, Jian Wushuang smiled and looked around. "Is there anyone who wants to fight with me?" He called out in a loud voice. "Me!" An ice-cold girl stepped forward. Although Jian Wushuang beating Zhang Tao was beyond the expectations of many people, it did not count for anything. After all, Zhang Tao had only broken through to the 4th level, and he was not the top among those who were at this level. A duel is still 1,000 points. Jian Wushuang said. Good. The girl did not hesitate. She shot at him directly. Swish! A fierce blade slashed straight out. The blade's extreme speed caused a glimmer of heat. Ha! Come on. Jian Wushuang laughed loudly. He moved his sword in a counterattack stance. The girl had a high cultivation of blade essence of raging fire. She was close to the 5th level and even stronger than Zhang Tao. As she fought with Jian Wushuang, she soon discovered that Jian Wushuang not only had a strong ability using sword essence of Gale, but also the sword essence of Earth. Sometimes these 2 swordsmanships were very fast and smart. Sometimes they were heavy as a mountain pressing overwhelmingly. 2 great changes of the sword essence quickly suppressed her. The fight did not last long. This fight caused many disciples of Dragon Palace to sigh. If her cultivation of the blade essence of raging fire were higher, she would not have been suppressed, and she would have had a better chance of winning. Yeah, he was just a little stronger than her. Jian Wushuang was just slightly stronger than the girl. Everyone could see it. Hence, the 3rd challenger was ready to challenge. This challenger was much more powerful than the ice-cold girl. Everyone was expecting Jian Wushuang to be defeated in this fight. But the result was shocking. A narrow victory. The fight with the 3rd challenger had lasted for nearly an hour. Jian Wushuang had finally obtained an extremely narrow victory. 3 consecutive fights had all been won. Jian Wushuang's points went from 2,000 to 5,000. The Dragon Palace disciples' expressions become a bit weird. They were not stupid. It was rather coincidental to win 3 fights in succession with such a trivial difference. He was victorious in all 3 battles, and all of them were narrow victories? What a lucky guy. This swordsman, is he hiding his strength? Impossible. After all, he is just a newcomer. Those disciples of Dragon Palace knew that Jian Wushuang was only a newcomer who had passed the 4th level of Dragon Gate. Therefore his strength should be very limited. However, they were very suspicious of him after he won these 3 consecutive battles, beating his opponents. A burly man came out among the crowd looking extremely domineering, wielding a thick broadsword. Lin Feng. Lin Feng came out. Disciples of Dragon Palace all looked at this burly man. Lin Feng, you have gone through the 5th level. Aren't you ashamed of challenging a newcomer? Wang Yuan fumed with a dark face. Although Jian Wushuang had defeated 3 challengers who were at the 4th level of the Dragon Gate, this burly man, Lin Feng, had passed the 5th level already. You are a swordsman. You should also have the strength to break through the 5th level. Why can't I challenge him? Lin Feng replied indifferently, and his eyes looked to Jian Wushuang. Of course you can. Jian Wushuang smiled slightly. To duel, it is still 1,000 points. Okay. Lin Feng nodded. Be careful. Whoosh! Lin Feng crossed 10 meters instantly and appeared before Jian Wushuang. He swung his thick broadsword ferociously. A water drop essence erupted. All of a sudden Jian Wushuang felt like he had been plunged into a boundless sea, with crashing waves. He was a lonely boat in the sea, at risk of capsizing any time. Water drop essence? Jian Wushuang frowned, immediately berated in a low voice. I'll break it down. A strong sword light pierced out at an alarming rate, tearing down everything with its speed. The thick broadsword brought stacked waves, covering everything. The sword light pierced several ripples by Jian Wushuang. The power was weakened to the extreme, but the thick broadsword continued to deliver its full force. Retreat! Jian Wushuang retreated without any delay, exerting the sword essence of earth at the same time. The best skill of sword essence of earth, thick and strong, was defense. Hua 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 hua. Lin Feng's broadsword domain erupted completely. A series of shadows split endlessly, and it did not stop. Jian Wushuang felt lost, as if he had plunged into a huge whirlpool. No matter how he struggled to resist, he could not get rid of it. He only relied on sword essence of earth to resist. Water drop essence. This is water drop essence? Jian Wushuang with a trace of horror. This was the first time he had fought with such a strong concentrated drip realm. He had a new appreciation towards this water drop essence. Water, the greatest power of water, despite it being seemingly weak and feeble, but it had the power to wear through boulders. After all, it is a lack of sword tactics of sword essence of earth. Otherwise, I can fight with Lin Feng. Jian Wushuang sighed. His heart was yearning for formless sword wave. The swordsman is suppressed. He is finally suppressed. He will be defeated. It is normal. Lin Feng, after all, has passed the 5th level. The disciples of Dragon Palace around he saw the scene on the battlefield, and all of them sighed. But at this moment, a sword shadow pierced out in a straight line, at incredible speed. It was the 3rd type of formless swordsmanship, expeditious maneuver. Logically, the 3rd type of formless swordsmanship was not a threat to Lin Feng. But once this sword shadow appeared, boom! It was an extremely forceful sword, its power unexpectedly soaring at this moment, almost directly defeating Lin Feng's offensive. The sharp sword shadow was more than a stroke crossing his shoulder. What? Still in shock? Lin Feng's clothes at his shoulder had been cut away. Jian Wushuang had still won this fight. What's the matter? Lost? How did he lose? This? Everyone around was confused. Lin Feng was so superior, completely suppressing Jian Wushuang, and he should have won immediately, but yet he had suddenly lost. Only Lin Feng himself barely knew the reasons for his loss. Strength, its strength. His power surged suddenly on that sword so that the power of his swordsmanship also rose sharply, tearing through everything directly. Lin Feng thought inwardly, but he was curious that Jian Wushuang was at spiritual sea realm like him. Why was his power so much stronger than his? He did not know that compared to ordinary martial warrior, the biggest advantage of Jian Wushuang was not his sword essence, nor swordsmanship, but cultivation method. He practiced the heavenly creation skill. He was an inverse cultivator who defied the natural order. Lin Feng's power was at the peak of ordinary spiritual sea realm, and Jian Wushuang, at the peak of his spiritual outbreak, could compare to Gold Core. The spiritual power of Gold Core was far from spiritual sea realm. In the Dragon Palace, although there were numerous disciples, most of them were just as the spiritual sea realm. Only a handful of people could break through to reach Gold Core. All men defeated by Jian Wushuang were just at the spiritual sea realm, and he deliberately controlled his power to fight with them. However, Jian Wushuang had only broken out 30% power while facing Lin Feng. Although it had only been 30%, it was also stronger than the normal spiritual sea realm peak. So he defeated Lin Feng with one sword strike. Lin Feng defeated. Jian Wushuang got 1,000 points again. Who else wants to fight with me? Jian Wushuang looked around, but those disciples of the Dragon Palace were now hesitant. Before, everyone treated Jian Wushuang as a soft persimmon and wanted to pinch and get points from him. But after these 4 showdowns, especially the fight with Lin Feng, they still did not know why Lin Feng failed in the end. They also realized that Jian Wushuang had hidden his real strength before, so now no one was willing to duel him. Watching this scene, Jian Wushuang squinted his eyes, but immediately laughed. Among disciples of the Dragon Palace, there are innumerable geniuses, so many people. Why is it so difficult to find someone to duel with me? Or are you reluctant to fight with me, as I am just a newcomer? Well, among you, as long as you went through the 5th level, you can challenge me. I will not reject anyone. As for the bets, all will be 1,000 points. Do not reject anyone? Disciples of Dragon Palace around he turned to a dark face. This swordsman, what a crazy guy. He even dares to say that he would not reject anyone. Clearly looking down on the disciples who broke through the 5th level. I'll fight with you. Most of disciples of the Dragon Palace were infuriated by Jian Wushuang. A disciple who had broken through the 5th level came to fight with Jian Wushuang immediately. The battle continued. Jian Wushuang's arrogant words of all are welcome indeed annoyed the disciples of the Dragon Palace. Many disciples who had broken through the 5th level itched to have a try, which was as he expected. Based on the comprehension of realm, these disciples were almost all at the level of exceptional spiritual sea realm, while Jian Wushuang barely reached the 5th level, so many of the disciples who broke through the 5th floor are stronger than him. Nevertheless, his greatest strength was in his cultivation method, which had superior overall power. Relying on his absolute strength, he won the 5th confrontation, followed by the 6th and 7th challenges, until the 11th. Jian Wushuang won all 11 matches. Those disciples of Dragon Palace at the martial arts practice field were speechless in astonishment. It was nothing for Jian Wushuang to win 1 or 2 battles consecutively, but now he had won 11 battles successively. In addition to the first 3 disciples who were at the 4th level, the other 8 disciples were all at the 5th level. However, they were all defeated by Jian Wushuang. It is his power that makes this happen. His power is even stronger than exceptional spiritual sea realm. It's strange that he has so much power as he is only at the level of spiritual sea realm. He has completed 11 battles in a row, but his spiritual power has not diminished. Why? Did he not need to consume his spiritual power when confronting others? Everyone was astonished. They thought Jian Wushuang's strength and vast spiritual power were amazing. Needless to say, his strength was much stronger than exceptional spiritual sea realm. But it was also his vast spiritual power shocked others so much. Several battles among these 11 battles were bitter fights. So how much spiritual power would these successive battles consume? Usually warriors needed to stop and have a rest to recover their spiritual power after at most 3 battles. But what about Jian Wushuang? Keep fighting. After 11 battles without any pause, Jian Wushuang won all of them without any reduction in spiritual power. How could this happen? And he was actually still at his peak level. What kind of monster is he? All those watching thought that this was incredible. Who else wants to battle me for points? Jian Wushuang said confidently and looked around. The disciples of Dragon Palace looked at each other in speechless despair and nobody stood out. Winning 11 battles in a row, Jian Wushuang proved to all that he was strong enough, and those people who wanted to challenge him would surely lose face and worse 1,000 points. For them, 1,000 points was a big deal. No one else. Seeing everyone's hesitation, Jian Wushuang nodded with satisfaction. However, as he was about to turn around and leave, an ethereal voice was suddenly heard. "It's very crowded here, isn't it?" The soft voice was followed by the arrival of a handsome man dressed in a luxurious robe who slowly appeared. Nan Gong J. Isn't he isolating himself? Why is he here? Haha. It must be the commotion. A burst of noise swirled all around, which made it clear that these disciples of Dragon Palace knew this handsome man. Jian Wushuang also looked at the man and found his appearance was almost perfect with slender physique, handsome face, and a free and ethereal temperament. Soon after I finished my self-isolation, I heard that there was a newcomer in Dragon Palace, and he said that anyone who had broken through the 5th level can challenge him. What arrogance! Nan Gong J smiled lightly, but his eyes were instantly locked on Jian Wushuang. Nan Gong J, my brother has said this, but these words are only for the disciples of Dragon Palace at the level of spiritual sea. So you, who is broken through 6 months ago, shouldn't be here. Wang Yuan couldn't help but shout. Most disciples of the Dragon Palace were at the level of spiritual sea realm, but a small part of them were at the level of gold core, and Nan Gong J was one of them. Oh, I do not know that your brother has made a distinction between spiritual sea realm and gold core. I am also the disciple of Dragon Palace who has broken through the 5th level. So it's okay for me to join this battle. Moreover, your brother just has a normal perception of the realm of heaven and earth, but he successively defeated so many disciples of Dragon Palace who are at the 5th level. It is precisely that his strength is much stronger than the others. I think his strength will not be weaker than a disciple at the level of primordial gold core if he goes all out. So it's quite fair for me to challenge him. Nan Gong J said. Exactly. This swordsman defeated so many disciples because that his strength is stronger than exceptional spiritual sea realm. Now Nan Gong J's strength is also stronger than exceptional spiritual sea realm. These two should have a battle. Immediately some disciples kicked up a fuss. You? Wang Yuan wanted to refute them. Wang Yuan, stop. Jian Wushuang waved one of his hands to interrupt him and continued. Since I said that, I won't break my promise. Nan Gong J, it's okay to gamble with you, but the stakes are still only 1,000 points. 1,000 points? Nan Gong J raised his eyebrow and said, no problem. I'll start. Nan Gong J smiled thinly, and his figure begun to slowly dissipate at this moment. Whoosh! A sword light appeared in front of Jian Wushuang suddenly. So fast. Jian Wushuang was greatly frightened. He knew sword principle of Gale and was also good at speed, but the speed of Nan Gong J was so fast that he even did not know when his sword was drawn. The sword essence of earth was so strong that Jian Wushuang did not hesitate to defend with it. Clang! 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 Nan Gong J slashed his sword 10 times consecutively with increasing speed and power. Jian Wushuang went for broke to going all out with sword essence of earth to defend against Nan Gong J. However, he felt that he could not sustain this because the sword shadow was like thousands of poisonous snakes. Suddenly, pop! Nan Gong J's sword edge crossed Jian Wushuang's right-hand wrist with a very clear sword scar. The pain in Jian Wushuang's wrist made him loosen his grip of the triple kill sword. Bro Jr., are you okay? Wang Yuan, Yang Zixuan, and Su Rou immediately rushed over. I'm fine. Jian Wushuang shook his head and picked up triple kill sword again. Nan Gong J, the battle is just for learning from each other. You shouldn't hurt him so much. Wang Yuan shouted in a low voice. Oh, sorry. It's just an accident. Nan Gong J replied immediately. But his joking smile made it clear to everyone that he did it on purpose. Damn it. Wang Yuan gnashed. Bro Senior, can I help you? Yang Zixuan said with an increasingly cold look on Nan Gong J. They all knew that Nan Gong J did it deliberately. No, Jian Wushuang shook his head. He knew that Yang Zixuan had enough strength to defeat Nan Gong J, but he thought this was his own matter and he did not want others to help him. I lost this battle. 1,000 points, here you are. Jian Wushuang gave Nan Gong J 1,000 points directly without hesitation. After getting the 1,000 points, Nan Gong J didn't change his facial expression but touched his nose and said suddenly, Swordsman, do you want to fight with me one more time? Jian Wushuang was so surprised. Nan Gong J, don't go that far. Wang Yuan immediately shouted. Don't get me wrong. Nan Gong J shook his head and said, I intend to continue the battle for points, but this time the condition will be changed. For example, you will win as long as you withstand my swords for 3 times. What do you think about it? I can win after 3 swords? Wang Yuan immediately looked at Jian Wushuang in confusion. Disciples of the Dragon Palace around him all looked over and discussed this heatedly. What does Nan Gong J intend to do? Jiang Wushuang will be the winner after fighting with him for 3 moves. In the past battle, swordsman used nearly 20 moves before he won. What's wrong with Nan Gong J? Does he want to give his points to others for nothing? These disciples of Dragon Palace were confused over Nan Gong J's behavior, because in the past battle, Jian Wushuang endured nearly 20 moves before he won. Now he wanted to defeat Jian Wushuang with less than 3 moves. What a joke. If I agree with the battle, how many points will you bet? Jian Wushuang looked at Nan Gong J calmly. 1,000 points is too few. I believe you have many points now because you have won so many battles before, so I will bet my 7,000 points, including my current points and the 1,000 points I won from you. Nan Gong J said with smile. 7,000 points? People around he were all shocked. Nan Gong J is too confident. How could he be so brave to bet 7,000 points in such an unfair confrontation? 7,000 points? Jian Wushuang smiled slightly with his pupils shrinking, but then he rejected. Sorry, I'm not interested in it. What? Nan Gong J changed his facial expression. He refused? It was incredible, someone around exclaimed. It's clear that the swordsman can win points without any effort, but he refused it. Is he a fool? Humph, you are a real fool. Nan Gong J must have enough ability to bet on 7,000 points with the swordsman. In my opinion, the swordsman is really stupid if he agreed with the battle. Yes, Nan Gong J absolutely has enough confidence in his strength. Many of these disciples of Dragon Palace were shrewd enough to see through the intention of Nan Gong J. Jian Wushuang, of course, was not a fool. Humph, wanting to set a trap for me to get more points from my hands. Jian Wushuang smiled coldly. In the past battle, though Nan Gong J did his utmost to conceal himself, Jian Wushuang saw the truth clearly. He did not do his best, and he even just used less than half of his strength. Jian Wushuang knew it clearly. It looked like Nan Gong J beat him with nearly 20 moves in the last battle. But in fact, Nan Gong J did it deliberately. Jian Wushuang had no doubt that if Nan Gong J goes for broke, he could not withstand 1 move, let alone 3 moves. His comprehension for sword essence is much better than me, and he definitely has the strength to break through the 6th level. The 6th level. Yes, this was Jian Wushuang's assessment for the strength of Nan Gong J. Nan Gong J was at the level of Gold Core and his understanding of sword essence was at the 6th level of Dragon Gate. His strength could surely defeat him with no more than 3 moves. He rejected? He didn't fall into my trap. Nan Gong J was very angry at this moment. How did he know that I deliberately concealed my strength? Or was he too cautious to use 7,000 points to bet with me? Nan Gong J. Jian Wushuang's voice was heard again. Nan Gong J could not help looking up. If you really want to bet with me, it's okay. Jian Wushuang smiled slightly and continued. But today I battled with others many times and my spiritual power has been consumed greatly. My wrist is hurt, so I have no power to battle again. Therefore, we can conduct this battle in 3 months' time. 3 months. Nan Gong J frowned. Of course, after 3 months, I will have a fair battle with you, and I will accept any points you want to bet. What do you think? Jian Wushuang said. Hearing these words, Nan Gong J's eyes were bright. Deal. Nan Gong J agreed quickly. Deal. Jian Wushuang nodded seriously. Hearing their words, people around were confused. Is this swordsman stupid? Having a fair battle with Nan Gong J in 3 months? Points are also up to Nan Gong J. Does he think that he can beat Nan Gong J in 3 months? He is definitely crazy. Almost everyone thought Jian Wushuang was crazy and silly. After all, Nan Gong J had great strength. Many disciples knew from the last battle that he could break through the 6th, and he was also an expert of the Gold Core realm, while Jian Wushuang just was at the level of Spiritual Sea realm. Even if his strength was great enough to fight with Primordial Gold Core, how was his understanding of sword essence? Jian Wushuang's understanding of sword essence could just narrowly break through the 5th level. What a big gap! Could he make up such a large gap in 3 months? What a joke! Haha! Nan Gong J was very happy and he laughed. Your words have been heard by so many people present. I will come see you in 3 months. After these words, Nan Gong J turned around and left happily. As he was leaving, Nan Gong J was still thinking about the scene in 3 months. This guy didn't know that I just showed a small part of my strength and I didn't show my perception of sword essence completely. I also didn't show my trump card. Even in this case, I beat him easily. How can he beat me in 3 months? Haha. Come on. I'm looking forward to that day. But that day, I will bet much more than 7,000 points. Nan Gong J was full of confidence for the battle in 3 months. All those on the martial arts practice field looked at Jian Wushuang with pity in their eyes. However, no one noticed that a subtle smile appeared in the corners of Jian Wushuang's mouth. It was not long before Jian Wushuang left the martial arts practice field. Wushuang, are you sure that you can duel with Nan Gong J in 3 months? Wang Yuan could not help asking the question. I have already promised him. I can't break my word, can I? Jian Wushuang said with a faint smile. But Nan Gong J is very strong. Wang Yuan said seriously. I know. Nan Gong J can break through level 6, said Yang Zixuan. I know. Jian Wushuang nodded, but was not afraid. Take it easy. I promised I would duel with him and I'm confident of success. In 3 months you'll see. Jian Wushuang had a faint smile. He did not feel anxious. Perhaps 3 months was a short time for ordinary warriors, but for Jian Wushuang it was too long. It had only taken him 4 months before he understood what the sword essence was. It had only taken 4 months before Jian Wushuang was eligible to break through to the level 5 of the Dragon Gate. Perhaps even Dragon Palace disciples would be shocked at his cultivation speed. He had cultivated by himself without any teachers or help for 4 months. Even so, great progress had been made, not to mention now in the Dragon Palace. The Dragon Palace was renowned as a holy place for cultivating. It was rich in resources, for temples of earth, fire, water, and wind. The secret land of heaven and earth. The secret pavilion. Besides, Jian Wushuang could learn from so many talents now by exchanging views. With such wonderful conditions for cultivation, he would certainly comprehend the realm of heaven and earth faster. That was why he was confident enough to duel with Nan Gong J in 3 months' time and had promised that no matter how many points Nan Gong J required, Jian Wushuang would agree. Anyway, nobody but Jian Wushuang himself knew the reason. Shortly afterwards, Jian Wushuang went to the secret pavilion again. He had hardly won 11 duels in succession when he lost one in the martial art practice field. Every time he won a duel, Jian Wushuang would get 1,000 points. So he had 10,000 points in total. Including the 2,000 points from his own, he had 12,000 points in total. He was very well off now. Surely now that he had enough points, Jian Wushuang would naturally buy whatever he wanted. Using 7,000 points, he bought the formless sword wave and 3 skills of the formless swordsmanship. Then he exchanged 1,500 points for the Reincarnation sword skill in comprehending sword essence of earth. Reincarnation sword skill was a sword skill for defense. Sword essence of earth was the best for defense. After obtaining these 3 superb sword skill, Jian Wushuang bought 20 first-class divine pills with 400 points. Heavenly Spirit Pill was similar to Spirit Cultivating Pill. Only by breaking through Spiritual Sea Realm could warriors take Heavenly Spirit Pill. Weaker warriors should take Spirit Cultivating Pill. First-class Heavenly Spirit Pill was the best in Heavenly Spirit Pills. It was potent enough to produce the desired effect. In the outside world, first-class Heavenly Spirit Pill was very rare with extraordinary value, but in the secret pavilion of Dragon Palace it only cost 20 points for 1 first-class Heavenly Spirit Pill. Thus, Jian Wushuang exchanged 400 points for 20 first-class Heavenly Spirit Pills. As soon as he had bought what he wanted, he returned to his manor. In the courtyard of the manor, Wang Yuan, Yang Zixuan, and Su Ro sat at the stone table drinking wine. From time to time they turned to look at Jian Wushuang, who was practicing his sword skill. Bzzz. Jian Wushuang happened to be aggressive with his firm sword shadow. It was quite easy for him to learn the first move of formless sword wave without stopping. The second, third, fourth, sixth move. Formless sword ripple was divided into 2 parts. Each part included 7 sword skills. However, Jian Wushuang was such a genius that he performed the first 6 sword skills easily. He has performed the 6th move? Wang Yuan was shocked. After having bought the sword skill, he performed the first 6 moves in merely 2 hours. Even if he had comprehended the sword essence of earth, he shouldn't have performed such sword tactics so fluently. Yang Zishuan was a little surprised as well. After all, sword skills were combined perfectly using sword essence and swordsmanship. It was important to comprehend sword essence, but it was more important and difficult to grasp every move of the wonderful sword skills. Like a general warrior, even if he got the sword skills and had the appropriate sword essence, it would take a long time to learn and grasp the moves and skills of sword tactics. But Jian Wushuang was absolutely not an ordinary warrior. After having bought the sword skills, he performed the first 6 moves in just 2 hours with no difficulty. He is a genius, Yang Zishuan thought with eyes blazing like torches. Wushuang has a gift for sword principle. He's such a genius. If an ordinary genius wants to grasp the first moves of such advanced sword skills, he must learn for several days. Wang Yuan sighed. Jian Wushuang had hardly performed the 6th move of the formless sword wave when he stopped practicing. Formless sword wave is worth 5,000 points. Every skill or move is powerful enough, so I'll comprehend the sword essence of earth as much as possible. Jian Wushuang was quite satisfied. He had always been distressed for he could not comprehend the sword essence of earth fully without suitable sword skills. But now he did not need to worry. What a pity! Perhaps I cannot comprehend the sword essence of earth fully. Although I am trying my best, I cannot break through the 6th move, Jian Wushuang thought. He had grasped the basic skills of the 7th move but had not been able to perform the complete swordsmanship. Haste creates waste. I have to walk with a firm step, Jian Wushuang thought with a faint smile. Shortly afterwards, he started learning the Reincarnation sword skill. Early the next morning, Jian Wushuang came to the 4 temples. The 4 temples of earth, fire, water, and wind were renowned for their 6 strong temple masters, who would occasionally give instruction in the palace. Today, a master was giving lessons. Jian Wushuang went into the ground palace where many of Dragon Palace disciples sat on the ground. Some were discussing as they pleased. Jian Wushuang did not mind the disciples talking around him. He sat down and closed his eyes to cultivate. It was not long before a master appeared. Jian Wushuang opened his eyes and turned to him. He was a middle-aged man wearing a golden robe. He looked quite kind. He seemed to be an ordinary person without excessive tyranny. But when Jian Wushuang first looked at this middle-aged man, he found himself deeply attracted by the master, as if the man had something magical. That is why he can give lessons in Dragon Palace. Although he showed no strength outside, he seemed stronger than Yi Rufeng, Jian Wushuang thought. The whole Earth Temple fell into complete silence immediately when the man showed up. The middle-aged man sat on the ground and started giving lessons. What he taught were some concepts and experiences. He occasionally performed a few movements of the Earth Essence realm. Every one of the disciples, including Jian Wushuang, listened intently. It was not long before Jian Wushuang felt puzzled about the lessons. He fell into deep thought. After an hour, the man stopped teaching. He waved his hands to the people in the palace before all the disciples on the ground left. Jian Wushuang rose to walk out of the palace slowly. He was in deep contemplation. He did not come out of it until he was far away from the palace. Is that it? That's the reason. A flash appeared on Jian Wushuang's face. His eyes were sparkling like fire. He turned to gaze at the Earth Temple and inhaled deeply. He was clear that though the middle-aged man had only taught for 1 hour, Jian Wushuang had still learned a lot. He had also comprehended unknown knowledge about sword essence of earth in his head. Perhaps this is why the 4 temples are called one of the 3 treasures of Dragon Palace. It was so helpful to listen to the lessons from the temple master. Jian Wushuang sighed. 4 temples of the 3 treasures of Dragon Palace did not require many points. Dragon Palace disciples could listen to their lessons whenever they wanted. But this did not mean the 4 temples were useless. Instead, the 4 temples were sometimes more helpful and larger than the secret land of heaven and earth and the secret pavilion. I did not comprehend a lot and had no teachers to ask before. I relied only on myself to cultivate. However, everything I needed is now in front of me. Next I'll know what achievements I can make. Jian Wushuang held his hands tightly with eyes sparkling. From then on, Jian Wushuang was deeply focused on cultivating. His cultivation was very regular. When the temple masters of the Earth Temple and the Wind Temple in the Four Temples gave general lessons, Jian Wushuang would go and study by himself afterwards. Sometimes he would go to the martial arts practice field and watch the other disciples' fights. When he fought with others, he always kept his strength. As for the secret land of heaven and earth, he could not go there whenever he wanted. After all, although it was helpful for him to comprehend the sword essence there, he would think about the mechanism of it for a long time. Thus, Jian Wushuang went there once every 2 weeks in general. 3 months passed quickly. These were the most precious 3 months for any newcomer. One must know that almost everyone lacked in good teachers and cultivation resources before going to the Dragon Palace. So they began to learn considerably in the 3 months. In the history of the Dragon Palace, some disciples had been ordinary, but after the 3 months they showed significant talent and improved remarkably. Never mind Jian Wushuang, who had woken up his sword soul during the 3 months. How much had he improved? He was in the manner. His sword shadow was so swift that it was like lightning in the sky. A gust of wind passed. When he stopped performing, the wind died away. Everything fell into silence. No, this movement is still far from perfect. Jian Wushuang wrinkled his brows in concentration. Though it was fast enough, he was not satisfied with the movement he had just performed. I have completely grasped the 4th movement of the formless swordsmanship, but the 5th is still wrong. The 4th movement of the formless swordsmanship was named 100 variations, which he had completely grasped in 2 months. But the 5th, it was much more difficult than the 4th. The first 3 movements of the formless swordsmanship were very complicated, while the middle 3 movements were even more difficult. Never mind the last 3 movements. That's why the formless swordsmanship is renowned as the greatest sword skill in Tianzong dynasty. Although the formless sword wave was also a sword skill, it only took him 2 hours to completely grasp all of the first 7 movements and perform the first 6 movements on the ground. But the formless swordsmanship was much more complicated than the formless sword wave. He had completely comprehended the 4th movements after 3 months. However, he did not understand the 5th. Wushuang. Wang Yuan hastily came in with his raspy voice, and Yang Zixuan and Su Rou followed him. What's the matter? Jian Wushuang turned to look at them. Wang Yuan approached Jian Wushuang and breathed for a while before he said, Nan Gong J has gone through the Dragon Gate Pass. Oh! Jian Wushuang was a little surprised, but immediately said with a faint smile, Which level did he pass? The 6th. Wang Yuan looked serious and said, As we know, he has passed the 6th in less than an hour. It will not be long before he goes through the 7th, but he will stay there for a long time before he advances further. 3 months ago, I knew he could pass the 6th, but he did not try until today. It was obviously deliberate for him to go through the 6th today when you will fight with him. I think he was afraid you might flee away if he did so earlier, Yang Zixuan said. Timid Su Rou, who had been speechless, added, There's a threshold between the 6th and the 7th Dragon Gate. The level keeper of the 7th is much stronger than that of the 6th. He could fight with the level keeper of the 7th, which means he is very strong. Jian Wushuang listened carefully and he nodded slightly. Indeed, it was not a big deal for him to go through the 6th because they had already known he could pass it. But it was completely different for him to fight with the level keeper of the 7th. Nan Gong J's capacity to understand the sword essence is the best even among the disciples who have gone through the 6th. Yang Zixuan said. Wushuang, what's your plan? Wang Yuan turned to look at him. All I can do is take measures according to the actual situation. Jian Wushuang smiled. You have a big heart. Wang Yuan rolled his eyes. Jian Wushuang smiled. He did not feel anxious. He had passed the 6th level in Dragon Gate and fought sharply for a long time with a 7th level keeper. So what? So what? I'm not shocked by that at all. It's funny. It was because he had not gone through the Dragon Palace for 3 months. Otherwise it was Nan Gong J who had to worry now. You 3 can talk while I have to go to the secret land of heaven and earth once more, Jian Wushuang said. He left to go to the secret land of heaven and earth. Wang Yuan and the others watched Jian Wushuang's back from afar. They were worried. Wushuang must be anxious. That's why he is going to the secret land of heaven and earth. I am afraid he's not confident about fighting with Nan Gong J. Wang Yuan said seriously. I hope Nan Gong J will not bet too many points. Otherwise it'll be your turn to win back the points for Wushuang. I do not mind fighting with him, but I am afraid Nan Gong J dares not to fight with me, Yang Zixuan said in a cold voice. Despite it being early in the morning, there were many disciples of Dragon Palace, some of whom were even at the 6th or 7th level, gathered on the martial arts practice field. Many people wanted to watch as it was well known that Jian Wushuang and Nan Gong J would fight here in 3 months. Have you heard? Nan Gong J got past the 6th level in Dragon Gate. He even fought a close battle for a long time with a 7th level keeper. Of course, Nan Gong J didn't fight earlier or later until the last day before the duel. His purpose was very clear. Look, he is coming. Nan Gong J, in a luxurious robe with charming smile, and another 2 disciples came over side by side, slowly walking amongst all the disciples of Dragon Palace. The 2 disciples were well known in Dragon Palace, who both had passed the 6th level. You too. Don't forget what I told you. Nan Gong J talked with the 2 disciples in a low voice. Don't worry, we will never forget what we have promised. Not to mention that it is also important for us. One of them replied, 3,000 points. It is not a small number. I will not lend it to you easily if I didn't know your actual ability. The other one smiled. So you two just enjoy the fight. As soon as the fight is over, I will return the 3,000 points with an extra 1,000 points. Nan Gong J smiled. Of course. We have never doubted your ability. The 2 disciples smiled. They have both battled with Nan Gong J, so they knew his ability. There was no point worrying. It was why they agreed to lend their points to Nan Gong J. Not long after Nan Gong J arrived at the martial arts practice field, Jian Wushuang also appeared, of course followed by Wang Yuan and others. Look, the newbie is coming. It seems that he is confident. Wouldn't a genius like him, who is qualified to be a member of Dragon Palace, be confident? What's more, he has been in Dragon Palace for 3 months, which is a time of great improvement. So as a newbie, he must have improved significantly in this period. Great improvement? So what? How far can he go in 3 months? He could get past the 5th level with difficulty 3 months ago. It is unlikely that he could reach the 6th level. He can only beat Nan Gong J in his dreams. Yeah, he is a newbie after all. Hope he won't lose too badly. Guess how many points will Nan Gong J bet with the newbie? The newbie has said in public that he will agree with any amount of points. Let's wait and see. He won't win anyway. It will be a lesson for him to be more humble as a newbie. Disciples of Dragon Palace on the scene spoke loudly without much thought, so both Jian Wushuang and Nan Gong J could hear them clearly. Swordsman, you dared to come? Nan Gong J laughed and looked at Jian Wushuang. I promised to fight with you 3 months ago, so I've come. Jian Wushuang said indifferently. Great courage. But you are a newbie after all, too naive. Nan Gong J shook his head and said, Cut the crap. Nan Gong J, how many points do you want to bet? Jian Wushuang asked. Don't worry. You are a newbie after all, so I won't go too far. Nan Gong J grinned. I know you won 11 fight 3 months ago. Although you have been defeated by me, you won 10,000 points in the end. Plus you came to here to fight and won some points. So you have about 15,000 points. I have borrowed my friend's points, 12,000 in total. Let's bet 12,000 points. 12,000 points? Isn't this too much? All the people present were stunned. They all knew that Jian Wushuang got many points by fighting. But scores were very valuable and important in Secret Pavilion and Secret Land of Heaven and Earth. It must be difficult for him to take out 12,000 points. Isn't it too much? 12,000 points? 12,000 points were enough to exchange for several secret techniques or to go to Secret Land of Heaven and Earth 12 times. It was a large amount for any disciples of Dragon Palace. Nan Gong J had gone too far in betting 12,000 points. Do you think the points are too much? But you said yourself that you would agree to whatever bet I wanted. Nan Gong J put on an act and said, 12,000 points? Okay. Jian Wushuang nodded his head directly. Haha. Great courage. Nan Gong J said with a smile immediately. The drill ground was immediately filled with turmoil. He agreed. The swordsman dared to take it. It is 12,000 points? The swordsman has so many points? Is he being arrogant at his own cost? Seeing all the worried eyes, Jian Wushuang smiled secretly and turned to Wang Yuan and other two people. Bro senior and sis junior, I need you to borrow me some points. Jian Wushuang said. He did not have 12,000 points, but he could borrow them. Do you have the confidence, bro? It is 12,000 points. Wang Yuan frowned and said, Definitely. Jian Wushuang nodded. Okay. It is enough to hear that. I trust you. You can have all my 4,000 points. Wang Yuan said directly. I have exchanged for 2 secrets before, so I don't have that many. You can have my left 1,500 points. Yang Zishuan said. You can also have my 3,000 points. Su Rou said timidly. Enough. Jian Wushuang smiled and looked at his bros and sis gratefully. Jian Wushuang regarded the 3 people as his bros and sis the moment they lent their points to him without any hesitation. 12,000 points. Jian Wushuang took out his disciple's pledge. The points in the pledge were shown to everyone. Jian Wushuang looked at Nan Gong J with a threatening gaze. Nan Gong J, you looked for this fight yourself. Primordial Gold Core is a big deal? You got past the 6th level in Dragon Gate and fought closely for a long time with a 7th level keeper. Is that a big deal? I will test how much progress I have made in the 3 months by fighting with you. Come on. A 12,000 point battle would begin at any moment. Haha, freshman. You should be careful. Nan Gong J's laugh rang out on martial arts practice field. Chew. A cold sword shadow broke the air and moved towards Jian Wushuang. The sword edge was cold enough to tear through anything. Formless swordsmanship? Jian Wushuang was surprised. Jian Wushuang was very familiar with this sword skill. Nan Gong J was using the first move of the formless sword art, Blood Shadow. Jian Wushuang drew his sword and used the formless sword art too. The 2 sword shadows were both incredibly fast. They entwined with each other like 2 serpents, then separated immediately after colliding. Fuck off! Followed by a howl. The long sword in Jian Wushuang's hand drew up immediately, filled with killing intent. A fresh bloody sword shadow moved through the air like it was dancing in the wind. In an instant, the air was cut through directly. Ha! Nan Gong J laughed. Then he moved his wrist and used the same sword movement. It started with the first move, Blood Shadow, then came the second move, Sword Killing movement. They were tied again at the end. Time for a different skill. Jian Wushuang had a cold look in his eyes. Whoosh! A sword shadow immediately stabbed out. It seemed very slow, but the real speed was astonishingly fast. The 4th move of formless swordsmanship, 100 illusions. The 4th move? Ridiculous. Nan Gong J yelled out and grinned. The same slow sword came out from Nan Gong J. They struck each other and then separated at the same time. Jian Wushuang stared at Nan Gong J with a dignified look. Swordsman. This is your level of strength after earnest cultivation in Dragon Palace for 3 months? Nan Gong J stared at Jian Wushuang with a little derision. It is really brave of you to take out those 12,000 points and fight with only this much strength. Stupid enough. I will show you my real strength. After saying that, Nan Gong J prepared to make his next move. Wang. It seemed slow, but it was actually an astonishingly fast strike. Nan Gong J still used the 4th move, 100 illusions. It was the same move, but it was twice as fast as before. The previous sword strike was already extremely fast. How did he manage to reach a speed that was twice as fast as before? So fast. Jian Wushuang's complexion couldn't help changing when he saw that terrifying speed sword. You lose. Nan Gong J growled in an excited voice at that moment. Will he be defeated? All the people around there paid attention to the scene, watched as the sword light approached Jian Wushuang. After the sword essence of earth was released from Jian Wushuang's sword. A thorough and majestic sword shadow struck out. The sword shadow seemed to be overlapped by numerous sword shadows, striking out violently. It seemed like a 100 million pound mountain, grinding everything as it violently moved forwards. What? Nan Gong J's complexion changed a lot. Before he could respond, the 100 million pound mountain reached him. Pong! The loud roar shook the whole space instantly, with its power forming several shock waves. It even swept away many disciples of Dragon Palace that were too close at that time. After that strike on the battleground, Nan Gong J was knocked back awkwardly. He quickly noticed a sharp pain in his palm and a little blood. A giant sword scar, nearly a foot wide, was left on the ground in front of him. Lots of disciples of Dragon Palace around there gasped after seeing the sword scar. It was the 7th move, Formless Sword Wave. Some disciples of Dragon Palace immediately recognized the swordsmanship Jian Wushuang used just now. Formless Sword Wave? Nan Gong J felt stressed. There were a lot of sword skills in the secret pavilion. That included some famous ones such as Formless Sword Wave. He knew that Formless Sword Wave was quite fitting for warriors who comprehended the sword essence of Earth. In general, if you could fully use the 6th move, you would be able to pass the 5th level in the Dragon Gate. As for the 7th move, it was no problem to get past the 6th level in the Dragon Gate. I was too careless. I didn't expect his comprehension of the sword essence of Earth to be much higher than the sword essence of Gale. But this is the end. I will not give him another chance to use that move. Nan Gong J thought solemnly. The 7th move, Formless Sword Wave, was powerful. A sane person would not confront the toughness with toughness. However, warriors who comprehended the sword essence of Gale depended on speed, rather than strength. Nan Gong J. Jian Wushuang's voice rang out suddenly. His black eyes stared at this Nan Gong J with indifference. You said you would show me your real strength just now, and I've seen it. Jian Wushuang spoke, with a grin that was similar to a blade. Now, I'll let you see my real strength. After saying that, Jian Wushuang held the triple kill sword with both hands, raising the long sword high. Wang Wang, the splendid sword essence of Earth, reached its peak at that moment. Boom! Such a terrifying sword stroke. Before the sword stroke landed, everyone already felt a horrible power was continuously condensing. The momentum in Jian Wushuang's triple kill sword increased suddenly and sharply. Everyone saw a giant sword shadow forming slowly, 3 meters long and half-meter wide. Pression. The moment the giant sword shadow formed, the oppressive atmosphere reached its peak. The air seemed to shiver. Formless Sword Wave. The 8th move. Jian Wushuang shouted out suddenly. The huge streak of sword shadow drew everyone's attention. With a soaring aura, it wavered slightly and then lashed out. The world suddenly changed colors. The 8th move? Can it really be the 8th move? Nan Gong J's eye opened widely. He was already shocked when Jian Wushuang used the 7th move. Now, Jian Wushuang was about to use the 8th move. It was well known that anyone who was able to perform the 7th move was qualified to reach the 6th level. The 8th move, the Formless Sword Wave 8th move, along with his comprehension of the sword essence of Earth, was enough to pass the 7th level. 7th floor. Although he fought fiercely with the keeper of the 7th floor for a long time when he went through the Dragon Gate yesterday, he knew that it was not a fierce fight. Instead, it was a very suffocating fight because he was completely suppressed by the keeper. He only managed to prolong the fight for a while by relying on his speed. He clearly understood that he was far from being able to pass the 7th level. But now, someone who entered Dragon Palace for only 3 months ago surpassed him completely in comprehension of sword essence. Nan Gong J was dumbfounded when the splendid, giant sword shadow hacked directly towards him. Following that, an unprecedented look of madness appeared on his face. Swordsman, you made me do this. The huge and mighty sword shadow crashed down. The 8th move. He can master the 8th move? All the disciples of Dragon Palace held their breath. Go away! Nan Gong J shouted suddenly with a tremendous spiritual power erupting out of him. What? Everyone was surprised. An icy sword shadow erupted with incomparable power, struck out directly and tore the sword shadow into pieces immediately. The mighty power then turned into a strong breeze and dissipated. However, after tearing the sword shadow into pieces, The power of that sword shadow still persisted and turned into a light flying straight towards Jian Wushuang. What's this? Shockingly, Jian Wushuang swung his sword against it immediately. Clang! A violent power crashed over Jian Wushuang with a loud bang. He was forced to step back, each step heavy enough to crack the ground. When he came to a stop, he shook his stinging palms. Jian Wushuang looked up at Nan Gong J again with an extremely serious expression. Nan Gong J, I have looked down on you. I would have never thought that you would not only hide your comprehension of sword essence, but also your cultivation of spiritual power. Maybe only a few people knew you were at Profound Gold Core Realm in Dragon Palace. Profound Gold Core Realm, right? This moment, the spiritual power of Nan Gong J had reached Profound Gold Core Realm. When the disciples of Dragon Palace on martial art practice field noticed his spiritual power, a stir was raised. Profound Gold Core Realm? Nan Gong J has reached Profound Gold Core Realm. A man who has reached Profound Gold Core Realm challenged a new guy who was at the level of Spiritual C to a duel? Nan Gong J might be going too far. The gazes of disciples of Dragon Palace looking at Nan Gong J suddenly changed. One should know that one has his own pride as a genius. Anyway, Jian Wushuang had just reached Spiritual C Realm. As a primordial gold core, Nan Gong J was just bullying. And now, Nan Gong J had revealed that his cultivation of spiritual power reached Profound Gold Core Realm. A man who has reached Profound Gold Core Realm challenged a warrior who was at the level of Spiritual C to a duel? It was far more than bullying. This was shameless. Nan Gong J, as a Profound Gold Core Realm, you challenged my bro to a duel? You were so shameless, so brazen. If I were you, I would hide my face in disgrace. Wang Yuan shouted from the sidelines. Ha! Nan Gong J looked around and said in his chilliest tone. The world has its law of the jungle, and the Dragon Palace has too. How would you fight a duel to win points if you don't even know how to hide your strength? Swordsman. Nan Gong J looked at Jian Wushuang. You, as a freshman entering Dragon Palace for less than 3 months. It's an honor to force me to this situation. I will still gladly accept your 12,000 points. Boom! Nan Gong J pushed off the ground, which cracked at once. With an ear-piercing rushing sound, Nan Gong J slashed with his sword. It was still formless swordsmanship. Under the outburst of spiritual power of Profound Gold Core Realm, the speed and power had both reached a brand new level. The sword light pierced the void and whistled. Its amazing speed and intense power were heart-stopping. Disciples of Dragon Palace held their breath as they watched this. Nan Gong J, do you think you can defeat me like this? Ridiculous. Jian Wushuang sneered. Although Nan Gong J's spiritual power was at Profound Gold Core Realm, he was still calm. Reincarnation sword skill. When Nan Gong J's swordsmanship swept through, Jian Wushuang engaged Reincarnation sword skill. The vast sword essence of Earth was maximized in the meantime. Reincarnation sword skill, a defensive sword skill which could be exchanged for with 500 points, could not be compared to formless sword wave. However, if it was properly used, its power could overcome the formless sword wave. Moreover, because of the low points needed for Reincarnation sword skill and its outwardly simple technique compared to formless sword wave and formless swordsmanship, Jian Wushuang could master this sword skill perfectly. Jian Wushuang has completely mastered the Reincarnation sword skill in the last 3 months, even reaching the peak. And now he used the Reincarnation sword skill to its full potential. Clang, 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 clang. Continuous clanging sounded around the martial art practice field. The surrounding disciples of Dragon Palace were shocked to see this. How fast! How strong! This swordsmanship is so fast, so amazing. Look, the swordsman is being completely suppressed. He seems to be losing. That is not necessarily the case. Don't you see that the swordsman has resisted Nan Gong J's swordsmanship even though he is being suppressed all the time? His defense is watertight, right? He has mastered the Reincarnation sword skill completely and put it to good use. It won't be easy for Nan Gong J to win. Lots of disciples started discussing in whispers. On the battlefield, sword flash struck at high speed and from multiple angles. Nan Gong J's swordsmanship, perception of sword essence and cultivation of spiritual power of the profound gold core realm had reached perfection. The heart-palpitating sword flash generated an irresistible feeling among the surrounding disciples. But what about Jian Wushuang? The sword kept moving, dauntless. His swordsmanship seemed simple, but resisted all the sword shadows perfectly. It was true that Nan Gong J's sword flash was powerful, and it had completely suppressed Jian Wushuang, who had no chance to strike back. Still, Jian Wushuang was resisting every attack from Nan Gong J. Well, although his cultivation of spiritual has reached profound gold core realm and his power is much better than mine, I can still defend. When I use my reincarnation swordsmanship, I can weaken the power of his swordsmanship. Otherwise, even if I could block, its impact force would be enough to defeat me. But now, he can dream about my defeat. Jian Wushuang's expression was cold. The most exquisite part of reincarnation sword skill is its ability to wear the opponent down, using the sword strokes to weaken the power gradually. Finally, the power from the attacks had no impact to him. This boy is so hard to deal with. Nan Gong J's expression became unsightly as his attacks were blocked by Jian Wushuang over and over again. I cannot defeat him quickly even with my full strength. His defense is perfect and can even disperse force. Perhaps I could defeat him directly if my swordsmanship much faster than his. Nan Gong J said to himself. He needed a stronger and faster swordsmanship to defeat Jian Suhong, but he has already used his full strength. How can he make it faster? There is only one way to defeat him, though it's a bit disgraceful. However, even if it's shameful, if I win, I will receive 12,000 points. Nan Gong J's face turned grim. He had already made up his mind to defeat Jian Wushuang in the most unethical and dishonorable way. That way is through spiritual power consumption. Spiritual power is the source of power. The importance can be imagined. During the battle, spiritual power was constantly consumed, but it has a limit. Nan Gong J decided that he would compete against Jian Wushuang using the consumption of spiritual power. After all, he was in the primordial gold core realm and had reached the profound gold core realm. However, Jian Wushuang was only in the level of spiritual C. There were two subrealms between them, including a true realm. Under normal circumstances, Nan Gong J should have much more spiritual power Jian Wushuang. Naturally, he should last longer during battle. Once Jian Wushuang's spiritual power runs out, he would win. Phew! 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 The roar of swordsmanship continued. But, as the battle continued, the disciples of Dragon Palace began to understand Nan Gong J's intention. How shameless Nan Gong J is. Wang Yuan gnashed his teeth. He's going too far. As someone in the profound gold core realm, he should stop and end it in a draw if he can't quickly defeat an opponent in the spiritual sea realm. That way, he would suffer less embarrassment. But now, he actually wants to rely on his advantage in spiritual power to compete with swordsmen. It's a disgrace. Even if he wins, I would despise him. It's so humiliating. He even makes me, an expert of the gold core realm, feel extreme shame. The disciples of Dragon Palace looked at Nan Gong J with disdain. Even the two who came with Nan Gong J looked at each other for a moment with complex feelings. They also thought Nan Gong J is being ignoble. However, considering that they had loaned their points to him, if he won, they would also benefit. So they didn't say anything. Humph, idiots. During the battle, Nan Gong J glanced at the surrounding disciples of Dragon Palace, sneering in his heart. It is disgraceful. So what? The winner takes all. I will even do despicable acts to win those 12,000 points. Lose. Nan Gong J watched Jian Wushuang, paying attention to his aura of spiritual power, but his complexion quickly changed. What's the matter? This is impossible. It was unbelievable. Yes, he could not believe it. He has been fighting with me for so long, but his spiritual power is... It is not weakening at all? Nan Gong J looked startled. As someone in the profound gold core realm, he has already consumed more than half of his spiritual power while fighting for so long. But what about Jian Wushuang? His aura was still grand, his swordsmanship was still sharp, and his spiritual power was still strong. There were no signs of him weakening. How is that possible? Nan Gong J couldn't believe what he was seeing. However, when Jian Wushuang saw the rich expression on Nan Gong J's face, the corner of his mouth lifted, turning into a cold smile. Spiritual power consumption? You want to defeat me with only spiritual power consumption? Jian Wushuang really wanted to mock Nan Gong J at this moment. He practices the heavenly creation skill. Although it seemed that he was in spiritual sea realm, the spiritual sea realm for the heavenly creation skill is the ultimate spirit sea. What is the ultimate spirit sea? It is a vast sea of spiritual power. When he first broke through to the ultimate spirit sea, he had 10 times as much spiritual power as ordinary warriors in the spiritual sea realm. However, he kept practicing these last 3 months. Not only that, he had eaten and absorbed the effects of 21 first-class heavenly spirit pills. Now, he was at the second stage of the ultimate spirit sea endless spiritual power. He had 100 times more than an ordinary warrior in spiritual sea realm. 100 times more spiritual power. And Nan Gong J in the profound gold core realm only had several times that of ordinary warriors in the spiritual sea realm. How dare he compete against Jian Wushuang using consumption of spiritual power? It was like a novice warrior in sword principle complementing his swordsmanship is in front of a master of swordsmanship. It was stupid, just ridiculous. It's impossible. Nan Gong J's face had become extremely pale. He could suppress Jian Wushuang in a fight, but he couldn't win. Adding to that, his consumption of spiritual power was far more than Jian Wushuang's. Eventually, he would lose. Swordsman, stop. Can we end this in a tie? Nan Gong J said quickly. A tie? Hearing this, Jian Wushuang could not help cursing. Nan Gong J, I knew you were shameless, but I did not expect you to be this shameless. It is already ridiculous for you, an expert in the profound gold core realm, to fight with me, someone in the spiritual sea realm. When you realized that you could not defeat me directly, you even tried to defeat me using the consumption of spiritual power. But that did not work. Now you know that your consumption is faster than mine, and you actually have the guts to say that you want to end this in a tie. Nan Gong J, be a man. I have never met someone who is as shameless as you. Jian Wushuang cursed him openly, with no mercy, while the surrounding disciples of Dragon Palace looked at Nan Gong J in disdain. At first, he did not want to end with a tie. Now that he was going to lose, he wanted to stop with a tie. He was treating everyone like they were fools. Bastard! Nan Gong J tensed up. Now, with more than 90% of his spiritual power gone, his lack of spiritual power led to a sharp reduction in the speed and power of his swordsmanship. Jian Wushuang, who had been suppressed by him, struck back at this moment. OM! 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 His sword shadows were displayed majestically using the sword essence of earth. Jian Wushuang was obviously still at his peak and his sword continued to strike out. Nan Gong J had been completely defeated. Finally, a cold sword shadow swept out directly across Nan Gong J's arm, while Jian Wushuang used his foot to kick him. Nan Gong J flew back in an arc, like a parabola, eventually falling onto the ground. Nan Gong J lost. The whole martial arts practice field fell into silence. And at this moment, Jian Wushuang walked to Nan Gong J slowly, under everyone's gaze, looking down at him indifferently. You lost. 12,000 points. Pay up. On the martial arts practice field, the corner of Nan Gong J's mouth contained a trace of blood. After slowly standing up, his expression grew ferocious and was filled with resistance. Yes, he was not willing. He did not want to concede, even though he was defeated by Jian Wushuang after using his full power. However, no matter how unwilling he was, it was a fact that he lost to Jian Wushuang. He could not quibble. Ultimately, he could only tremble as he gave 12,000 points to Jian Wushuang. On the other side, the two disciples who had previously loaned points to Nan Gong J had a pale look. After seeing more than 12,000 points in his token, Jian Wushuang grinned and faced Nan Gong J again. Nan Gong J, I have some advice for you. Natural iniquity can be forgiven, but human iniquity cannot. Nan Gong J trembled physically and mentally. Suddenly, it's a good sentence. This rookie of the Dragon Palace is becoming more and more arrogant. A strong voice sounded out in the martial arts practice field, slowly followed by a red-robed man with a saber on his back. Everyone turned to face him at the same time. Su Lai. It is him. The tyrant Su Lai. After seeing him, many of the disciples of Dragon Palace that were present couldn't help exhaling a breath of cold air. Obviously, they were in awe of this man. Su Lai. Why is he here? Wang Yuan's expression instantly changed after seeing this person. Who is Su Lai? At this moment, Yang Zixuan, who was always silent, frowned and asked. He sensed a mighty pressure that he had only felt from Bai Cheng since the time he joined Dragon Palace 3 months ago. The tyrant Su Lai, a top genius among the disciples of Dragon Palace. Su Lai was the only one who could possibly be compared with Bai Cheng before second brother joined Dragon Palace, said Wang Yuan. Hearing this, Yang Zixuan's eyes could not help but squint. A warrior, who was in the profound gold core realm, was defeated by a rookie who has only been here for 3 months. Not only that, the rookie is only in the spiritual sea realm. Nan Gong J, you are definitely shameful enough, said the burly man. Su Lai, with a laugh. Nan Gong J had a pale look on his face. If these words were said by someone else, he would be furious. However, these words were spoken by Su Lai, who was also known as a tyrant. He was afraid to display even a little bit of a temper in front of Su Lai. Su Lai glanced at Nan Gong J, but he was too lazy to talk to him. Looking at Jian Wushuang though, he said, "Little guy, your name is Swordsman, right?" "Yes." Jian Wushuang nodded with a serious expression. When Su Lai appeared in front of him and looked at him, all the pores in Jian Wushuang's body were directly tied up. This feeling felt similar to being looked at by a fierce ancient beast. Jian Wushuang immediately understood that Su Lai's strength was terrifying. "I have heard of you. When you entered Dragon Palace 3 months ago, you only made it through the 4th level. But now, 3 months later, you should be able to make it through the 7th level with your comprehension of the essence realm of heaven and earth. That speed is matchless in Dragon Palace. Such a genius, I can't help being interested in you. Why not fight with me?" Su Lai said casually. "Battle with you?" Jian Wushuang changed his countenance, but he immediately shook his head without any hesitation and said, "Sorry, I'm not interested." Jian Wushuang did not want to battle with Su Lai at all. The reason was simple. Su Lai's strength was terrifying. Although he never made a move and just stood in front of Jian Wushuang knew that he was not this man's opponent. It was hard to say whether or not he could even take one move from Su Lai. The gap in strength was incredible and Jian Wushuang had no interest in being abused. "You are refusing me?" Su Lai's countenance became clouded, but he suddenly grinned and said, "I don't want to make a bet with you. I just want a pure fight with you. Your refusal, what good is it?" Boom! The floor under Su Lai's feet exploded instantly and the figure of Su Lai rushed forwards. At first glance, it looked like a mass of hot flames was fiercely racing towards Jian Wushuang. Oh no! At the moment when Su Lai started moving, 2 figures also rushed out, simultaneously, from behind Jian Wushuang. Those 2 people, one was Yang Zixuan, and the other was Su Rou, who rarely spoke. As for Wang Yuan, he had only gone through the 4th level, so he was unable to help Jian Wushuang. 2 traces of flowing light appeared simultaneously in front of Jian Wushuang. Yang Zixuan's eyes were cold and his saber was already drawn. In Su Rou's hands, there was a 2-meter-long, thick and heavy sword. Her slender figure raised the heavy sword and chopped out. "Ha ha! You want to stop me by yourselves?" Su Lai laughed while clenching his 5 fingers. Then, a terrifying flame filled with the essence of raging fire was released. It was as if he could burn everything around it. Then, Su Lai used his fist to directly attack them. A violent force suddenly rushed towards them. Yang Zixuan was someone who had gone through the 8th level of the Dragon Gate, and Su Rou herself had gone through the 7th level. As for Su Lai, on the surface, his strength was equal to a warrior who went through the 7th level. Bang! Bang! 2 deep crashes sounded and the figures of Yang Zixuan and Su Rou were both knocked backwards. they were knocked back forcefully, it was not because they moved backwards. The next moment, Su Lai struck out with his fist again. This fist smashed directly toward Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang quickly lifted his sword and executed the Reincarnation sword skill with his full power in an attempt to parry it. Bang! A terrifying power arrived. The force was more than Jian Wushuang could parry, even with the Reincarnation sword skill. Subsequently, the figure of Jian Wushuang was sent flying back under that terrifying force, smashing onto the ground behind him. Silence! Everyone at the martial arts practice field looked startled. The only emerging voice was from disciples of Dragon Palace swallowing their saliva. Fearsome! Similar words echoed in everyone's mind. It was indeed terrifying. In only a flash, Jian Wushuang, Yang Zixuan, and Su Rou were defeated without any room to even struggle. So strong! Jian Wushuang slowly rose to his feet and wiped the blood from his lips, but there was a trace of shock in his eyes. His cultivation of spiritual power absolutely reaches the exceptional gold core realm. Not only that, his comprehension of the essence realm of heaven and earth is far higher than mine. Jian Wushuang thought secretly, I have gone through the 8th level of the Dragon Gate. But based on his attack, I know that his comprehension of the essence realm of heaven and earth is definitely higher than mine. Yang Zixuan had a serious look on his face. You too. Su Lai clasped his hands and looked at Jian Wushuang and Yang Zixuan. A word of advice, as rookies you better keep a low profile. Dragon Palace is not as simple as you think. What you are seeing now is only the tip of the iceberg. Jian Wushuang and Yang Zixuan were both startled. What they had seen of Dragon Palace so far was only the tip of the iceberg. Su Lai was too lazy to explain any more and he wanted to leave. But after only taking 2 steps, he stopped suddenly. He looked to the side, smiled and said, Bai Cheng, you have been watching for so long. Have you seen enough? If you are itching for a fight, I don't mind playing with you. Bai Cheng. It's Bai Cheng. Following Su Lai's gaze, the crowd immediately saw a white-haired man dressed in a white garment on the edge of the martial arts practice field. White hair like snow. He, Bai Cheng, was the top person of Dragon Palace. As everyone was looking at Su Lai, no one noticed Bai Cheng's arrival. Su Lai, I hope I didn't upset you. Bai Cheng squinted at Su Lai. You don't provoke me, but just looking at you puts me in a bad mood. What can you do? If you feel bad, we can play a game and take a bet. Su Lai sneered and gave a bold look. Bai Cheng's countenance was clouded and he shouted in a low voice. You don't get it. One day sooner or later, I'll beat you down completely. Haha, I'm waiting. But before this, you can think of ways to climb up the earthly dragon list. Su Lai smiled and then left. Humph! Bai Cheng gave a cold grunt and then left. This scene made many disciples of Dragon Palace on the martial arts practice field look confused. It's said that Bai Cheng is the strongest disciple in the Dragon Palace. But why do I perceive that Bai Cheng seemed to be afraid of Su Lai? I don't think so. I think that Bai Cheng doesn't dare to battle with Su Lai. What on earth happened? Those disciples of Dragon Palace were confounded, as were Jian Wushuang and Yang Zixuan. Soon after, people on the martial arts practice field began to disperse. In the Dragon Palace, Palace Master White. Appearing in front of Palace Master White, Su Lai said with great respect but not the previous superciliousness on the martial arts practice field. I have given swordsman and Yang Zixuan some lessons based on your order. Okay, I have seen it. Good job. Palace Master White nodded slightly and said, Swordsman and Yang Zixuan have high talent, especially swordsman. 3 months ago, he merely was at the 4th level, but now he is qualified to go through the 7th level. In the history of our Dragon Palace, only several people could match with him in terms of the speed of his advancement. I have great hopes for him. However, we should give them some obstacles. After all, they are still rookies. Hearing this, Su Lai could not help pursing his lips. It was known that he was similar to Jian Wushuang when he joined the Dragon Palace. He did not put other disciples of Dragon Palace in his eyes. But Palace Master White also asked a powerhouse to let him face some obstacles. He was badly defeated in that battle. He became more humble after that. In the manner, Jian Wushuang and another 3 people were drinking, sitting at a stone desk. Haha. I'm very happy looking at the defeated countenance of Nan Gong J. Wang Yuan sneered. He's arrogant and shameless. He is only at the level of the profound gold core realm. But he still wanted to vanquish third brother by the consumption of the spiritual power. What a foolish man. Jian Wushuang smiled slightly and said, Nan Gong J is not important, seeing how he's not a threat in the future. As for Su Lai, his strength still shocks me until now. So do I. Yang Zixuan also nodded. I thought that the people who could be qualified to be my rival in the whole Dragon Palace was only Bai Cheng. However, it's not the case now. Dragon Palace is not as simple as it appears, Su Ro on the side said with low voice. I have gone through the 7th level, so I know something. Though there are only 16 people that have passed through the 7th level, there are many others who have the strength to go through it. But they don't do it, so nobody knows them. I conservatively estimate that there are at least 30 people that have the strength to pass through the 7th level or even the 8th level. On the surface, there is only Bai Cheng and your second brother going through the 8th level. But in fact, there are at least 5 people who can complete it. Su Lai is one of those 5. Su Lai has reached the level of exceptional gold core realm a long time ago. So Bai Cheng would be vanquished if they battle, although Bai Cheng's comprehension of the essence realm of heaven and earth is higher than his. So that's what it is. It could be the reason that Bai Cheng seems not to dare to battle Su Lai. Yang Zixuan nodded secretly. We all look down on Dragon Palace. Jian Wushuang shook his head and smiled. By the way, what is the earthly dragon list Su Lai mentioned? I know it, Wang Yuan said this time. Earthly dragon list, set by the Golden Dragon Palace, lists the 100 strongest powerhouses of all experts of the gold core realm in the Tianzong dynasty. If someone can be listed on Earthly Dragon list, he would stand at the top of pyramid of all those of the gold core. All of them could vanquish those at the primordial gold core. The higher rank, the greater the strength. It's said that the experts ranked at the top 10 of Earthly Dragon list could match or even kill warriors at the level of the Inyang Void realm. Hearing this, Jian Wushuang was shocked. Match, even kill the warriors of the Inyang Void realm? It should be known that the gap between spiritual sea realm and gold core was huge. And the gap between gold core and Inyang Void realm was even larger. A warrior of primordial golden pill realm was like a monster if he could match with a warrior of Inyang Void realm. It would be legendary if a warrior of primordial gold core killed a warrior of Inyang Void realm. It's true. Each powerhouse listed in the top 10 of the Earthly Dragon list has this ability. Wang Yuan continued saying, by the way, the Earth Dragon list seems to be at the secret pavilion. If you are curious about it, you can swap points for it and read it carefully. Okay. Jian Wushuang left toward the secret pavilion without any hesitation. Hearing this, he was filled with ambition to rise on the Earthly Dragon list. Soon after, Jian Wushuang was back. He swapped 100 points for an Earthly Dragon list in the secret pavilion. Although it was called a list, it was a thick book. Jian Wushuang opened the first page. Tianzong dynasty is vast and is filled with talented heroes. Over time, old people are replaced by new people. Lots of heroes die and are forgotten. Our Golden Dragon Palace compiles the Earthly Dragon list and the Heavenly Dragon list by recording the heroes in the Tianzong dynasty. Earth Dragon list record the 100 strongest of the primordial golden pill realm in our Tianzong dynasty. Jian Wushuang was fascinated. There is not only the Earth Dragon list but also the Heavenly Dragon list. The Earthly Dragon list records the experts of the primordial gold core, and the Heavenly Dragon list should record those of the Inyang Void realm. Jian Wushuang kept reading. The 100 superiors of the golden pill realm on the Earthly Dragon list all had outstanding battle results and their strength was recognized by many sects. If you want to be listed on the Earth Dragon list, you need great battle results. Reading the first page. Jian Wushuang continued reading the second page right now. There were some introductions of the 100 powerhouses listed on the Earth Dragon list on the second page.